Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into Hoopsville. Oh, it is February 12th already, 2024. It is a Monday afternoon. Where has the darn time gone? I felt like yesterday it was still the holidays. We were coming home from the DIII Classic. We were getting ready to kind of dive into conference playoffs. Just before that, we were talking about the regular season getting started. Here we are. Let's go. We've got 2 weeks left in the regular season. That's it. We got 1 week for most conferences left in their seasons before they start conference tournaments. Some conference tournaments start in just a few days. And in 2 weeks' time from today, I'll be on air with you talking about who was in or who is in, who was missed out, who did miss out, what matchups are going to be the toughest, etc. We are 2 weeks away from knowing who's in the NCAA tournament, and there is a ton, an absolute ton to dive into. There is a ton still at play. There are conference races that are going to come down to the last game of the regular season for the schedules before you start conference tournaments to determine who's going to be seeds, 1 through whatever. It is absolutely insane, and it is so much parity that everyone's top 25 took an absolute shellacking over the weekend. I don't know half the time what to make of anything. And then we had this weekend. Just double checking, another team in my top 25 lost. So this is just my top 25, okay? 2, 3, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 teams lost a game this week. So half my teams lost a game. Nobody lost 2. Trine lost a game. Guilford lost a game. Case Western, Keene, Platteville, NYU, Catholic, Loris, Co., Claremont Mudscripts, Farmingdale State, WPI, Pomona Pitzer. And the teams that you would say, okay, so they've lost some, we'll remove some of those from the top 25. The teams I'm considering, most of them lost too. And some wacky results. Trine losing to Olivet. Guilford, maybe not wacky losing to Virginia Wesleyan, but at this point, Guilford at 20-2 coming into the game should probably win that. Case Western Reserve gets a win or loses to NYU and then beats Brandeis. Keene State beats Eastern Connecticut, loses to Western Connecticut. Sneaky good team, by the way, in that Western Connecticut squad. They're 20-4 now. Platteville loses to the Giant Killers in Stevens Point. Stevens Point only gets attention, and this is no knocking them, but they're getting attention this season because they're beating the top teams. They have beaten Platteville again. Platteville's now 19-4. I believe 2 of those losses to Stevens Point, if memory serves. I'll see if I can find that real fast in my top 25 docket that gets sent to us top 25 voters every week. It has been a long weekend, so I haven't been able to get through my entire ballot. Pat Coleman, if you're listening at home. Yeah, so Platteville's lost to Keene State, Trine, and Stevens Point twice. Stop it. NYU beats Case. Lost to Carnegie. Now, listen, Carnegie's good, don't get me wrong, but still, it's like, what? Catholic lost to Drew, and it wasn't close. Down in D.C., at the Dufour Center. Drew comes marching in on Saturday and says, here's a loss. Thank you very much. Enjoy your second one of the season. Drew's a sneaky good team, but come on, Catholic. Loris loses to Simpson. Co. beats Simpson, loses to Nebraska Wesleyan. Claremont Mudscripts loses to Pomona Pitzer. Farmingdale State loses to Manhattanville by 4 after feeding Yeshiva the week before. Manhattanville is 16-7, 8-5 in conference play. Framingham State is comfortably in at the top of the conference, but still, I mean, WPI loses to Clark. Maybe not a huge surprise there, but still. Pomona Pitzer loses to Chapman. And of course, Pomona Pitzer then beat Claremont Mudscripts. I should point out, by the way, Cal Lutheran almost didn't get out of the week unscathed. They had an overtime game with Oxy that they eventually won. And that's not even counting everybody else's top 25 teams that they're voting for, that I'm not voting for, at least last week, who took losses. And and listen, it's fun though, because this is parity in Division III. This is fun. This is exciting. On the women's side, it's up in the air. I know this doesn't relate, and forgive me for a little bit of pride in my alma mater, but Saturday they go in against a game against Juniata. The games are swapped because of girls and women's celebrations for the women's side, so they wanted to play the women's game first. Landmark schedule right now has women playing second on Saturdays. So they swapped the games. Men are playing second. So they already know some of the results. For example, the team they beat on Wednesday, Elizabethtown, they were tied with Elizabethtown on Wednesday to get the 6th spot in the conference playoffs. The Landmark's now at 6 with 10 teams in the conference. And then they find out E-Town wins on Saturday, so they have to keep winning because they're not going to do well in the tiebreaker as a standing stand right now because E-Town has a better win because they're going to end up, if they end up tied, E-Town has a better win at the top of the conference than Goucher has. So they go into Saturday's game against a really good Juniata squad who's sitting comfortably in the playoff race. I think they're third or fourth. They know they're going to have to win. Every game's important. Goucher's got a ridiculous finish here with Catholic at the very end, of course. But more importantly, or actually not the very end, they got them Wednesday. But more importantly, they got to stay ahead of E-Town. They don't want to get into a tiebreaker with them. They go and absolutely handle Juniata. I was stunned. Juniata's a good team, and Goucher handled them, beat them by 20 plus. And it was a 20 plus game for much of it. That's the kind of results we're getting left, right, and center. I'm amazed by the parity because we talked about it, but at some point in the season, usually things settle down a little bit. Yes, you're going to get your occasional late season what? But we're getting tons of them. We're not getting a couple, and it's happening on the women's side too. Yes, the top 25 on the women's side's a little bit more, let's call it secure, but it's not foolproof in any way, shape, or form. NYU, Transylvania, Rhode Island College, they're all still just, rolling along here. Just looking at the top 10 in women's basketball alone. NYU still is 22-0. Transylvania is 23-0. Rhode Island College is 23-0. Gustavus, they picked up another loss. They lost to Concordia Moorhead earlier this week. I think we talked about that on Thursday's show. Christopher Newport rolling along, 22-1. 22-1 for Hope. Their lone loss was a long time ago now. Wartburg continues to roll along. Their last loss was the end of 2023. Scranton continues to dominate. Catholic, the only nemesis for Catholic has been Scranton, and that's it. They've split the season with Scranton. So they're right there, still rolling along. Whitewater. Oh, by the way, Whitewater has struggled a little bit. They've lost 3 of their last 6, but they are on a 2-game winning streak. But they're 3-3 in the last 6 due to injuries. And that's the other part of this. There's so many injuries going on in Division III. Not surprising. Of course, there's injuries going on in Division III, but still. Just amazing what's going on in coming into the final 2 weeks. And we should point out the final 2 weeks are nuts. We have our first regional rankings that will be ranked coming out on Tuesday, tomorrow, if you're watching us live. You then have the top 16 announcement, which we should point out is coming up right here on D3, on Hoopsville, I should say, here on D3Hoops.com. Coming up on Thursday, live at 7 o'clock. The committee members aren't going to be, well, for the most part, won't be live, but the show will be live, as we'll talk who are the best, and if the tournament were to start right now, after week 2's rankings, who likely are in position to host, i.e., if you haven't gotten your host paperwork in, time is up. Get your stuff together and let's get rolling. That's Thursday. Then next week's our final regional rankings that we get to see before the selections, as we are 4 head deep in conference tournaments at that point. And then in just under 2 weeks, we'll do our Selection Sunday show. And 2 weeks from today is bracket breakdown. We get to find out the brackets too. Literally, as I'm on the air right now, one of those shows will be hitting the air with its bracket. How that plays out, I don't know anymore. D3 Datacast guys are certainly doing a bang-up job. Scott Peterson on the women's side doing a bang-up job of trying to dive in to see what's going on, who to keep an eye on, where people stand. So what's interesting is D3 Datacast guys are doing, so they went and predict each ranked spot in the top 10 regions and picked a few spots to show our work where some multi-team comparisons get very close and difficult. And they say, this is a tweet that just came out a little while ago, RACs and National Committee have some very challenging decisions to make. They do. It's bonkers. How they're going to break down some of these decisions is insane. Another interesting thing Matt Snyder said, because there's obviously a lot of conversations about pairwise and stuff coming. He says, I'm definitely in agreement with Logan Hansen ratings. I've not seen tweet from Logan. Rather than a database selection system, i.e. pairwise, D3 should adopt a rating system that includes margin of victory. We need to let go of the running up the score boogeyman. That doesn't need to be an issue. I don't fully agree with that. I think the running up the score issue is an issue. I think teams will do that, and you risk injury. You risk a lot of other factors. I kind of understand the premise. Maybe you can put a margin of victory in, but to a point. Because there's the other thing about margin of victory. Let's be honest. I would argue at about 20 points, the difference between a 20-point game and a 40-point game is marginal. It's really the bench play. I'll give you a great example of this. I saw it in person. Scranton and I'm sorry, Scranton and Goucher, apologies. Catholic and Goucher was seemingly almost a 40-point destruction, right? No, it was really a 20-point game most of the game. Catholic's bench is better than Goucher's. Plain and simple. No surprise there. Well, I mean, listen, Catholic's better than Goucher, but I just mean that the talent on Catholic's bench is superior to Goucher. So by the time they got into this, mid to, let's say, last 5 to 6 minutes of the game, benches started to matriculate into the game. And Catholic was shooting the lights out of the building. They shot 60+% in the second half. Their bench hit big shots. Suddenly this game went from 20 to what? It's 95-58 or whatever it ended up being. That doesn't mean Catholic is actually that many points better. So extrapolate that to whatever team you want to compare it to. Big shots in the second half with a bench player who wants to get some minutes and earn it versus another bench player who's just glad to be in because they haven't been in an NCAA tournament game. Maybe they're nervous and things explode. I don't think margin of victory is a good idea. I think you cap that margin of victory if that's the way you go. If you add a margin of victory component, and I'm not sure I love that, but I understand why people would lean toward it, you got to put a cap on it. Because again, I don't think a lot of games you can look at a 20-point, 30-point, and 40-point game and say those are 3 different results. Sometimes they are the same result. Saw a game last night in Division I where it was a almost 20-point win by the away team in a surprise, but it was a 2-point game with a handful of minutes left. And the home team, who had been struggling all day to shoot, continued to struggle to shoot. And in their desperation to get back in it, were giving up shots. Was that a 20-point? Was the other team 20 points better? No, they weren't. On a good day for that team, the home team, that game would have been an absolute destruction in the other direction. So that's where I think margin of victory is worrisome. The other thing, too, is, listen, we start talking about trying to measure the quality of a win. Does anybody, I know some of the younger people in Division III do not remember quality of win index, but it was a disaster. I understand the premise of trying to put a little notch on how quality a win is. I say you leave that to the committee. This is why I initially was happy on pairwise, and I've lost interest in it. Because I think the men's committee was doing this for a while, and they were told by the liaisons and others to stop, and I think it was a mistake. But let them dive into the numbers more. Hey, is that win against, is that a 1 through 50 team based on whatever you want? A lot of people throw out RPI. I know teams weren't using RPI. I'm going to have to dive back and talk to some of those former committee members who were using that system and saying, okay, what were you rating that against? I think they were using it against the SOS, which again is tough. The SOS is not an indicator of how good a team is, just an indicator of how good their schedule was. Please remember that. But there's got to be a way to dive in and say, and that let the committee determine the quality of the win, not a data point, not a margin of victory, not a QOWI type scale. But I'm fine with trying to dive into that. And I think we did really well on the men's side in the committees a few years ago to do that. And that's not a fault of those committees now. They're being told not to do it. There were systems put in place by Jeff Burns. I think Sam Atkinson's crew used it and others in that range who used data that they had to dive into the numbers. And they were told after the fact, the committee was told after the fact, this was done, to stop doing it. Let the committee do it. It's data that's in front of them. They're allowed to use it. It's good stuff. They're not diving off the criteria. They're not jumping into some hole that doesn't exist. There's an absolute space, I feel, to say, okay, what is your results against the top 25 regionally ranked teams based on whatever data allows you to do that? What's your results against the 25 through 50? Dive back into this quality of win against a number 1 in a region versus number 5 and have a conversation if that number 5 is better than that number 5 in different regions. Have that conversation. I understand this adds time. I get it adds time. And I know a lot of the pairwise argument, though I think they're using this as their crutch because they don't want to talk about why they really want to use pairwise. But I think the biggest reason, one of the arguments in pairwise is we want to lessen the time that people are using to do this work. Okay, I get that it's a lot of time. I really do. It's a lot of time on our end. It's a lot of time on Matt and Zach Snyder's. It's a lot of time on Bob Quillman. It's a lot of time on Ryan Scott, etc. Gordon Mann, Scott Peterson, Riley Zayas. It's a lot of time for everybody. I totally get that. And for all of us, none of us are paid to do it, including the committee members. I get that it's a lot of time. But if a committee's doing good work and they're finding ways to do it and they can dive into the numbers and read the numbers better and come up and extrapolate and figure out ways to make decisions based on the data they have and how quality that data is, let them. As long as they're not creating data that doesn't exist, as long as they're not creating reasons that aren't valid, as long as they're not doing something that's not in the realm of what the data is, let them dive in. Let them determine a quality of a win. Let them determine a quality of an opponent. Let them determine the quality of a schedule. And if there's other committees out there in other sports who do not want to find that time, if there's other individuals out there who feel their conferences are not getting a fair shake for a host of reasons, shoehorning a system in place that I'm hearing more and more details about that I don't like is ridiculous. That's not the answer. Now, we have got a whole bit more time to decide this. The championship committee had met last week, and they have made a decision on whether they're pushing pairwise forward, at least to the financial committee to determine if this is money Division III wants to spend. If it passes that, then it would go to the management council and then the president's council. So there's steps here, all have to be done in the next 2 months if it's going to be implemented for 25-26. So not next year, the following year. So there's still time to get this information, but some of the details I'm starting to hear of why pairwise is going to go in and how pairwise will be used. Here's one nugget. I'm telling you this. I've got it from one source. I need to extrapolate out more, so I'm going to be very careful with how I say this. But from what I'm gathering on pairwise, we're always informed that each national committee can adjust the dials, figure out how they want everything measured, and they will get their data produced. There are some out there now saying, no, this is going to be an across-the-board decision. That every sport's going to have the same dial adjustment. If that's accurate, that's baloney. Because you cannot tell me you can take basketball and compare it to field hockey and that those data points should be the same. Better example. Take basketball or soccer, huge sports, tons of teams, lots of regions, and compare it to football with very few at-large teams, not a lot of out-of-conference games, and less regions. You're telling me that those metrics should all be measured the same and pairwise? Baloney. Absolute baloney. If that's accurate, that's absolute baloney. But it's these people trying to wedge pairwise in because they're dissatisfied with something. And we start talking about a quality of wind index type measurement. Come on, we walked away from that because it was horrible. Let the committees do the work. Wow, this is a rant I did not expect to dive into today. I got to get going. Got great guests ahead of us today. We're going to talk to Ohio Wesleyan women's basketball, Texas Dallas men's basketball, number 1 and number 11, NYU men's and women's basketball, women's and men's basketball because women are 1, men are 11, WPI men's basketball, and St. John's men's basketball. By the way, hats off to Dean. Long losing streak. They ended it with back-to-back double overtime games that both scored 104 points. What? Bulldogs. Staying in the GNAC race thanks to two double overtime games back-to-back. Bonkers. Got a lot to talk about. Mark wants to know if Elmhurst is going to make the tourney. I don't know, Mark. Here's the problem. Last year we saw it. So many upsets in conference tournaments took away, I'd argue, 6 at-large bids at the minimum that normally would have been given out to teams who didn't win conference tournaments. We were debating teams at the end of getting into the tournament, at the very end, where we normally would have been debating them in the middle. This is going to be another topsy-turvy year, folks. I wouldn't be surprised in 2 weeks we're talking about teams in the tournament that we never expected and teams missing out that would have been a lock in past years as at-larges. Like I said, I got to take a break. We got women's basketball ahead with Ohio Wesleyan. Again, wasn't expecting to dive into that pairwise thing, but the more I hear about it, the more I hate it. The more I find it conniving, the more I find it baloney. I still have to dive in, but I believe at least one of our committees has not seen its data from last year. And the conspiracies on why are rampant. Take a break. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the NABC studios. I want to thank our partners at the NABC immensely. We'll talk more about that at the end of the show. When we come up, Ohio Wesleyan women's basketball and the crazy NCAC race. You're listening to Hoopsville. Back with more after this. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
If I lose, I'll respond with respect.
If I win, I'll back it up with humility.
If I fail, I'll rise up with honor. It's tough for us to put it all on the line.
Don't undo my hard work with poor sportsmanship.
Respect. It's the name of the game.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Apparently where we jump down rabbit holes way too often. Certainly did in the last segment. Appreciate you letting me rant. We don't rant enough on the show. We used to rant all the time. That was an unscripted, unknown, unplanned, on anything rant about our system. But we got a lot of good stuff out of that. I hope you enjoyed that first block. Came in with some energy, folks. Came in hot. By the end of this 3-hour show, we may be totally on the opposite end of this. I'm Dave McHugh, your host. If you got any questions or want to interact with us, our social medias, you can find us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Emails Hoopsville at D3Sports.com. Facebook is Hoopsville at or Facebook.com/just Hoopsville. And then YouTube.com/D3Hoopsville. Live simulcasting on the last two. Hope you'll enjoy us there. Also want to thank our partners at Hudl Blue Frame and Team One Sports. All right, talking women's basketball, one of the races that some of the guys got in my ear about said, hey, this one's really got us interested. We want learn more about this, and I had the space to do it, so we took advantage of it, is the NCAC women's race. Ohio Wesleyan's got a half-game lead on DePaul and a game lead on Wittenberg, 2-game lead on Denison. Ohio Wesleyan has emerged at 19-4 on the season. They have lost to Wittenberg. They have lost to DePaul, but you know what? They've also got wins over those institutions. So Wittenberg is coming up. They're coming off a 10-point win just about a week or so ago against DePaul. So joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline is the head coach of the Battling Bishops women's basketball team. It's Stacy Ungashik-Labdell. Did it.
That's right. You did good. You did good.
Got it. Awesome. Hey, first and foremost, thanks for joining me on the show. Really appreciate it. Congratulations. Listen, I think when I went into the season on the women's side, I looked at this standings, went, listen, DePaul is always kind of in this conversation. We kind of expect that, no surprise. You look at last year, Wittenberg certainly played really well. You all were lurking. Was this the year that you expected to stop lurking?
I think so. We really tried to just, reflect back on what we accomplished at the end of last year, winning the conference championship tournament and then, having the opportunity to play in the first round of NCAA. And I think the most important part there is where if you say, is this when you expected to stop lurking? We didn't have any seniors last year on that squad. So, the obvious is you're bringing everyone coming back for the nucleus of your team. And now you have 3 seniors that have had experience and had the opportunity to start and play for 3 years, including the COVID year. So I'm not sure that's a whole season. But so, yes, I mean, we just kind of said, you know what, we're not finished yet. And we definitely want to learn from the opportunities that we had last year, but nothing's a guarantee. So we kind of went back to the drawing board, started over, really reviewed our lowest level of training and said, you know, where do we want to go from here?
Significant, because if you win at least a share of the title, you haven't done that since 2001. If you win it, and you did that with Allegheny, you remember Allegheny? They used to be in your conference, by the way. And then if you win it outright, it's the first time you've done that since 2000. This is, forgive the term, maybe a little bit grandiose, but this is historic. This is a significant step for this program.
Most definitely, and you know it. We always say it's been too long since we've done that, but you know it is what it is. So we, you know, we recognize where we are. We've always talked about the legacy and the tradition of our program in Ohio Wesleyan. You know, for those who don't really know a lot about women's basketball, Ohio Wesleyan has a strong tradition in women's basketball. And, you know, we've just continued every year to try to work toward, you know, getting back to where we were and then, you know, surpassing that. So, you know, while we recognize it's been a while, we're enjoying it now. And, you know, we just want to continue on the next most important thing, which is practice today, preparation for Wednesday's game, and then, you know, move on from there.
Obviously, it's the tough part of the season, right? You're in the, okay, we're nearly there, but we're not there yet. Like, you've still got important games to play ahead of you. You've got Worcester and then Wittenberg. Obviously, the Wittenberg game important because any backslide and suddenly they're into the conversation. DePaul, you split with them. They're right behind you. But I know you don't want to put too much pressure on the team. So how do you tackle that? How do you go about the business of, hey, listen, every single one of these games is important. We want to stay in first place, but keep them loose too.
Mm-hmm. I really think it's just a matter of, you know, we've kind of prepared like this the entire season. You know, we talk about one game at a time, which I know sounds cliche, but it's really about what we do in the preparation every game. And really now it's about consistency. So, you know, we just try to focus on the preparation for Wednesday. And then, you know, from there, we're not overlooking anything. But it's really not about pressure. We say that, honestly, it's about earning the right to be prepared and to be where you are. So we try to look at it like that. Pressure is really only what, you know, the outside puts on us. If we can continue to stay focused on, you know, what we do and really just what matters within our circle, you know, we really believe that the result will take care of itself.
This team kind of goes around the circle that is your incredible senior in Casey Shipp for the guard. Geez, where do we start with this? Third team preseason All-American team. Last year, she was the NCAC tournament MVP, scoring 24 points, 9+ rebounds, 3+ assists, nearly 3 steals in the 3 games. She was Player of the Year in the conference and Defensive Player of the Year in the conference. That's never been done before. This year, she has been Player of the Week multiple times, 21st in scoring in the division, 20th in steals, 28th in scoring average, 7th in free throw percentage, and the list is lengthy. I know it's not all about one player, because especially in Division III, you got to win as a team. But, man, you've got that one player who can certainly help, even when maybe everybody else is having an off night.
Yeah, I think that, you know, you're right. It is about everyone, you know, not just one player. But, you know, to answer your question about Casey, is I really think that she really does everything in most stat categories. You know, she can score one-on-one. She, you know, gets steals, her rebounding, and her ability to go to the free throw line. I think, which if you have the ability to go to the free throw line 8 to 10 times a game, you're doing a lot of good things offensively, which then creates opportunity for your teammates. You know, so as far as Casey goes, you know, her numbers speak for themselves. But again, we wouldn't go and she wouldn't have the opportunity she has, you know, to your point, without her other teammates, and those really being, you know, to start with, are her other 2 seniors.
Yeah, I think that's the other part of this. Well, quickly about Shipp, you talk about free throws. 45 consecutive made, by the way, in a 9-game stretch this season. I assume she ran sprints when she missed, right? I mean, you got to, right?
You can't even make Casey run. She'll just say, okay, coach, I'll just run as long as I need to. It doesn't really bother her.
Very self-motivated. Yeah, those are the most dangerous ones, I think. She's sixth in scoring, by the way, in career, 1,480 points in 90 games. Seventh in career rebounds and third in career steals. Could break the record if she picks up another 30. But yeah, I mean, you've got other players, as you mentioned, seniors especially. Holman and Dennison are huge. Dennison is one of the best three-pointer shooters in the country, top 50 in percentage, ranks 10th in scoring in the conference. Holman, it leads the Division III in assists, in total assists, ranked second in average, 6.6 per game. Well, when you're passing it off to Dennison and Schipfer, you're gonna rank up those assists. But yeah, those two are obviously the other cogs to this wheel.
Yeah, it's really exciting to go back to, your question about last year and then kind of what were we looking for this season. I think we really have three of the best. We're in the best scenario with the positions we have. We have a point guard that really makes our whole team go, whether it's creating, pushing the pace, defensively, sometimes, and I apologize if I say Bean. Her name's Elizabeth Holman, but we call her Bean. So when you talk about Elizabeth, I have no idea who you're talking about. But Bean doesn't get a lot of credit for her defense, as much credit as she really deserves, because she just really, plays the floor all over. But then, so you have a point guard, you have a shooter who forces every defender to extend all the way out to the 3-point line. And then she has the ability, to get by and shoot a mid-range jumper. And then, of course, Casey, who just, sits there and waits for the rebound, gets the rebounds, doesn't mind the contact, goes to the free throw line. So, we were really excited, really not only about three seniors returning, but where they play and how they play together on the floor. And then adding in all of our other support, players is just, it's been really fun. And that's really all I can say is enjoyable to watch them really want to get better every day.
Sometimes it's just a matter of going, hey, why don't you head out there and play? If I see something wrong, I'll let you know.
I always tell them I'm grateful I have a front row seat to watching them. And sometimes I do have to remind them just to play, because actually these three seniors are very, they're committed. I can't get them out of the gym. And sometimes I have to remind them, like, hey, you might want to take a rest and you might want to sit back a little bit and just not overthink things and just go out and trust, where you're at in your preparation, and let's just have some fun and go play. So that's what we're trying to do right now, especially.
Makes sense. By the way, those three, you've got one listed as a guard in Schipfer. Okay. You got one listed as a point guard in Holman. Yeah, sure. B's a point guard. Dennison's 6 foot and listed as a guard. Stop it. Listen, I know she'll shoot from outside, but I know darn well she's pounding it inside too. So I'll give you a little credit. But here's the thing that got interesting, and you can help us with this. And this is where we are in Division III. It seems, if I read their roster right, they may have another year.
They may have another year, and maybe I'll have you contact them and ask them about that extra year. But right now, honestly, we're just we're focused on this year and what we can do. And then, we've said we'll have those conversations after the season. But if you can have any influence, hey, I'll take you up on it, and let's see what we can do to get them back for another year.
Send me a note. We'll see what we can do. 11 players pretty much get into every game, 19 of 23. So it's obviously not the trio, but you're also outscoring your opponents by 24. And you've played some pretty good opponents this year, as we mentioned, already in the conference, and obviously in Wittenberg and DePaul. You played Ohio Wesleyan and got a 3-point win. Unfortunately, an early loss to Muskegon and W&J, who we know is a good team, but those were close losses. This is a team that's got a wealth of experience on the bench. I'm curious, we're at that time of year, though. Do you stay with it, or do you start shortening things because you're at a point where, every minute counts? Like, last couple of games, conference tournament, maybe NCAA tournament.
No, I think, our plan is to go in and stay where we are with things, because, we always talk about, you just always bring your strengths every game. And we are fortunate. We have, like, you said, we have a lot of players that have, their strengths that they can bring. And how do you add value when we put you in the game? So, our subbing really depends a lot on the tempo that we play. We press a lot and we run. So it depends on, are we subbing a little more for defensively? Are we subbing a little bit more for offensively? And sometimes it's a matter of just giving our, top 5 or 6 minute people a rest, which probably will not happen as much coming down the stretch. But, we really feel like depth was one of our goals 2 years ago. We wanted to add depth in the players that we bring in and we recruit. And then we want to develop them and be able to add value when they go in the game. And we feel like we can go deep on both sides of the ball, defensively and offensively, probably 2 or 3. So, we'll just see how it goes. Sometimes it comes down to a matchup. What does our matchup look like? But we have the ability with our versatility, like you mentioned, Lauren Dennison, 6 foot, she doesn't really guard the post per se, but we can go pretty long and we can go, add some length to extend the floor a little bit, both defensively and offensively.
One last question about the rest of this schedule, the Worcester and then Wittenberg and obviously the conference tournament. Worcester's not having, I think, a season they were hoping. I would argue that a program, they want to get back in the conversation. They've struggled. You beat them by almost 40 last time. Those you heard earlier. I don't take stock after 20. 6-17, 1-11. Then you're going to have Wittenberg, who's 16-6, 9-3. Obviously a different result by the time you get to you. I watched a game last night, even Division I, where the top, and I saw it Saturday in Division III, where a top team took on a team who had a lowly record. And I don't know if they were looking past. I don't know if they weren't ready. How do you approach the game with Worcester to keep them focused, understanding you have to dominate here before Wittenberg's even a game we have to focus on? And I know you you're always looking ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a great question. And I think what we try to do in our program, really with everything that we approach, is we try to talk about it. And we try to talk about the obvious. We talk about, hey, I always ask the question, if you have any fears, if you have any doubts, let's talk about it now. Because the first time if you're faced with that in competition, that's not the first time you really want to have to face it. So let's face it. Let's talk about it. Let's create that plan that when it does creep in our minds, we've already talked about it. Now we can just revert to the plan. So, we've had this conversation. We've been in this scenario a couple times this season where, it, like you said, the obvious is everyone looks at a record and says, oh, and then they just assume. Well, we know what happens right when you assume. So we just talk about it and say, let's look at what we do. No other game matters if we don't take care of business in the game right ahead of us. And so it's a common conversation we've had all season. So we really, to answer your question, I think we'll have conversation today and tomorrow about, hey, what's ahead of us Wednesday? What do we need to do? What's our plan? And then we just go out, and the way that we, kind of scout and we teach anyway is we're more focused on our team than what the other team does most of the time. So I think these types of scenarios kind of play to our advantage, where we're focused on what we do anyway. And then we just take the tendencies of their, the opponent and what they do and say, okay, we have to make sure we do it. And especially now, consistency is the key this part of the season. So we try not to have too many ups, too many downs, peaks and valleys. We just want to kind of stay consistent throughout the 4 quarters and just take every segment, every rep. And we talk about, every 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Let's make sure we win the next 2:45 and then we'll go from there. So, I don't fear that. I think it's a reality, but again, we know how to have real conversation. So we talk about it and then we'll move on.
And you can't hang a banner if you don't take care of each game.
100%.
I know that's important for you all. It's been a while, and it's great to see the Battling Bishops back in this conversation. Though, admittedly, as we said, you're lurking the last couple of years. I mean, this would be the third 20-win season in the last 5 years, I think it was. That's pretty impressive for your program. I know you just unfortunately had DePaul usually ahead of you, which I know can be a challenge, but congratulations on what you all have been doing this season. I appreciate your time. I know you got to get back to film and all that and practice, so take care. We always give the coach, though, the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
No, just thanks for having us, and, thanks for all you do for Division III basketball. And, we hope that we don't disappoint, represent. We'll go out every day, and thanks again.
Well, thank you. Looking forward to talking Battling Bishops here in the next couple of weeks. By the way, keep Mike DeWitt in line for me, would you please?
Yeah, good luck with that one.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I know. That was a tall ask. You might have a better chance of sweeping your way right through a conference championship here. Coach, take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Stacey Lobdell joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Great to chat with her. Great to hear about Ohio Wesleyan and how well that program is doing. Great insight, and appreciate her time joining us. That NCAC race is great. It seriously is. DePaul is lurking, as we mentioned. Real quick, since we didn't talk about what their upcoming schedule is, DePaul has one game left against Worcester. So interestingly enough, Worcester's in the mix here with both Ohio Wesleyan and DePaul. Wittenberg, as we mentioned, obviously finishes with Ohio Wesleyan. They've got Oberlin in the middle. Remember, we talked to Oberlin earlier this season. They're 16-7. Unfortunately, struggled a little bit in the middle of the conference there. They lost 5 of 8 games, but they've won 4 straight. They've been dealing with injuries, but don't count out Stephanie Drummeyer's team. So that's a conference race that has certainly gotten a little bit more interesting with Ohio Wesleyan, DePaul, Wittenberg, Denison, and Oberlin just sneaking on the outside. By the way, those 5 teams I just mentioned have won 16-19 games this season. Hiram, Worcester, and Kenyon are the only ones below 500. It's a really good conference this year. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll jump down to the heart of Texas. We'll head to Dallas, talk Texas-Dallas men's basketball in their final season in Division III, right? Do I have the right one? Yeah, I have the right one. You're listening to the Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the NABC studios. Back with more after this.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Responsibility is being accountable for your words and actions, first and foremost. It also is an obligation to be a positive influence in the communities around you. Being in a D3 program, you're going to have lots of different opportunities. You're not just an athlete, you're also involved in student life. Your academics are extremely important. We give a lot of our student athletes responsibilities right from the start by giving them leadership opportunities, by having them engage in the community, be a positive influence. That's being a responsible person.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% would go pro.
That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that.
Now welcome back to Hoopsville. Jeez, once in a while my mic just doesn't want to activate. Hope you're enjoying the show. We're rolling along here on a Monday afternoon. Plenty to talk about in Division III. We're live simulcasting the show, by the way. If you want to interact with us, I see Cameron did. He says, do you think Widener men's basketball will move up in the rankings? If so, how much? Cameron, real quick thought on my head is no. I would say that they're kind of, I think they've hit their cap. I'm not sure how much. Listen, that's one of my challenges with my top 25 right now. I had them 16, and I feel that's too high. Or no, that's about as high as I'm going to let them go. They don't have a schedule that can compare with a Platteville or a Calvin or an Oswego or a Case Western, etc. So teams with less losses or more losses are going to stay ahead of Widener, I think. I think Widener's a good team. I just don't think they've got a resume that moves them up very far in the top 25. I think they're going to stay about where they are, unless voters feel they've got a vacuum and they got to move everybody up. One of the more interesting races is going on in what is a dissolving American South Conference. We've talked to a few people so far this season, especially on the women's side, about this conference. Obviously falling apart, thanks in part to our next program coming up on our next guest. Hardin-Simmons and Texas Dallas on the men's side have a two-way tie at 11-3 in conference play. Hardin-Simmons is 18-5 overall. Texas Dallas is sitting at 15-8 overall. And the two of them have split the regular season, which makes this really interesting about where everyone gets positioned behind them. LeTourneau's third, then East Texas Baptist and Mary Hardin Baylor are tied for fourth. To talk about all that and what it all means, joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline is the head coach of the Texas Dallas men's basketball program in his first year. It is Jared Fleming. Coach, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dave. Appreciate you having us today.
Absolutely. We should mention taking over for the great Terry Butterfield, who decided midway through the season to retire. I'm convinced he said, wait, we're going to Division II? No, I'm done. I don't need to reinvent my wheel. I'll let the youngins try and handle the D2 stuff. We'll talk about that later. But what's it mean after being an assistant for 8 years to take over a program that he really molded into a pretty consistent one that sometimes was a real powerhouse?
Yeah, no, it's I played for Coach Butterfield as well for 4 years back in the late 2000s. And it's special to be able to take over for him. When he started here at UTD, we were basically a very beginning of our program. I think they had 1 or 2 years of basketball. So he really built the thing from nothing. I mean, we were a commuter school that nobody really knew anything about when he started. And he took it to, multiple NCAA tournaments, a couple Sweet 16s, and Elite Eight, and multiple conference titles. And what he did was really incredible. So he's UTD basketball. So getting the opportunity to take over for him and be the next guy in line here in my alma mater it's a special thing. It's exciting. And don't you worry, Dave. I get a phone call pretty much after every game with his opinions on that. So he's still around. He's still living in the area, and he's still very invested in college basketball.
Yeah, I can't imagine him being able to break clean. That would be a very odd thing for me to hear. I'm sure, especially with his recruits still there. He's fully vested in what's going on. You guys have had an interesting season, kind of a roller coaster to some degree. You started the season losing two of the first three to the University of Dallas and St. Thomas, Texas, in somewhat close affairs. You did get a win over Texas Lutheran, sandwiched in the middle. Then went on a 5-game winning streak over Hendrick, Southwestern, Howard, Payne, Sul Ross, and McMurray. Then kind of had an interesting run, and you hit some really good teams. Hardin-Simmons beat you in mid-December by 9. Then you were at Cal Lutheran, lost by 18. Then you were at Tufts. That doesn't seem right. You were at a tournament. Sorry, I know you were at a tournament there.
Tournament at Cal Lutheran.
Yeah, at Cal Lu. Yep. You lost to Tufts out there in California by 12, came home, and the conference stretch didn't start well because Concordia, Texas nailed you by 20. I'll be honest. At that point in time, maybe I had done it already, but you all could have written off the season at that point and just said, "Hey, listen, we just got to play strong and get to the end." How tough was that, especially that 4-game losing streak?
So it was tough. Sandwiched around Christmas and everything, it was tough. We went on the road trip to Kowloon and played 2 really, really good teams that y'all talked a lot about, and that was tough. The big thing for us, Dave, has been getting healthy. Austin Page, who's a 6'10", big kid who's a stud, which is about 17 and a half a game. His first game, he'd been out for 6 weeks, was the Kowloon game. Our point guard, Luke Kaiser, who I think is second or third in the country in assists, who's sort of our heart and soul, missed both games in California and the Concordia game. Our 6th man right now, Thibaut Tagnon, his first game of the year was the Concordia game. And that has helped us getting all of our pieces back. And it's not that our pieces, we won games without those guys, but when we put everything back together, we were able to get on a little roll. I think the game at Mary Hardin Baylor right after that was sort of a gut check game for us. We responded really well. We were the only team that's beaten Mary Hardin Baylor at home. They're very talented. They're really good at home. We were able to get that done, and we've sort of rolled from there. And obviously, it hadn't been perfect, but getting our guys back, getting our guys healthy, and be able to put our best 10 guys on the floor in a game has been a big deal for us. And that's probably the biggest thing is health for us. So, but it was some challenging times there. There were some questionable moments about whether or not we could respond to, and not just losses, Dave, as you pointed out. There were some games there where we're not in the game in the second half, and that was tough for our guys. But they responded really well, and we've sort of got it rolling just a little bit right now.
Well, you guys did respond. I think that's the most important part. You mentioned that Mary Hardin Baylor game and kind of gotten on a roll after that point. You ended up winning 9, well, until now. Let's see. I did the math right there. 9 of the last 11 games. You've got a loss to Sul Ross State by 1 at home, and you have a loss. Mary Hardin Baylor did come back and say, well, listen, thanks, but no. Beat you by 12 on your home court. And you got the revenge back on Concordia, Texas in the last game. You defeated them 95-79. So obviously it worked. And you talked about some of these guys. I mean, Disher hands out 10 assists sometimes. Kaiser, sorry. I think Disher for some reason in my head. Hands out 10 assists in a game often. He's third in the nation in assists per game, or at least in the top 5. Donovan Sauter is in the top 10 in 3 points made. You've got Austin Page, who shoots better than 63%, which is just mind-numbing to me. You've got the weapons, you've got the pieces, and to be putting them together now heading in towards the conference tournament and maybe the NCAA tournament, you got to feel good as a coach that things have started to kind of settle into place.
Yeah, I think we've hit our stride here a little bit. Obviously, you want to be playing your best basketball in February, and into March, obviously in Division III. And I think we're starting to do that. Suter's been unbelievable for us. We're not a super experienced team. He's a 5th-year senior, and we have no 4th-year seniors. So we're a 5th-year senior and then a junior, sophomore, freshman group. So that I think was a challenge early on too. Just guys kind of stepping into bigger roles. But Suter's been incredible down the stretch here for us. I think he scored 20 plus. I think 5 straight games now. He can really shoot the 3. We've sort of figured out how to find him in transition and things like that, not having to just run stuff for him. But he's really had some moments where he's really carried us. But those 3, the point guard with Kaiser, the inside play of Page, and then having a guy in Suter who can just fill it up from all over the place, has been huge for us. And when those 3 guys are rolling, I think we're tough to beat.
Yeah, Suter averages more than 20 points a game, which is nothing to shake a stick at whatsoever. Page is averaging 17 points a game, as we mentioned, shooting 63%. Donnelly, 12 points a game. Mm-hmm. They all get their rebounds. We should mention out Balderaz, Jordan, 7.6 boards on top of all that. The assists that Luke Kaiser throws out is ridiculous, 129 in 20 games. That is an average, essentially, of 6+ per contest. You've got the pieces, but you're not done yet. This is, as we said, you're tied with Hardin Simmons, who you've split with at the top of this conference, and you've got LeTourneau and East Texas Baptist both on the road. So LeTourneau sitting right behind you in the conference race by 2 games, and East Texas Baptist by 3 games. This is a very tough stretch to try and play it out and stay in that number 1. Just for the record, Hardin Simmons is at Concordia, Texas, and at Maryhorn Baylor. Neither team's got an easy weekend here.
Yeah, we the conference schedule makers set it up really well. The top 6 teams right now in the conference all play each other. 1 and 2, which is us and Hardin Simmons, have to go on the road to the other 4. So it's set up really nicely for a fun finish. LeTourneau, they've got the Deontay Jackson kid, who's as good a guard as there is in the country. He's averaging 22.5 a game. He's a real problem to figure out how to guard. And then ETBU, they were a 2-round deep tournament team last year. They bring back multiple guys off that team. So, yeah, it'll be a challenge. It's going to be a big challenge for us going out there. LeTourneau has had unbelievable crowds at their place too. So it'll be a raucous environment, I think. So, yeah, nothing's dusted, nothing's done. The tie breaks get very confusing with us and Hardin Simmons, to be honest with you. And it depends on if we both win out, I think they're the host. But if we both split, depending on who we split with, it gets very convoluted. So, there's a lot to play for last weekend. That's for sure.
Yeah, you've even got me a little confused there. I'd be fascinated to see how this plays out. So next year, you guys go in this kind of limbo year as you transition to Division II. You'll still be playing Division III games, kind of like Sul Ross, but even a little bit more Division III than Sul Ross. But you won't be eligible for anything. It's a tough transition at this point because you're fighting for something right now that obviously means a ton. Because if you make the NCAA tournament, you win the ASC championship. These are meaningful things, are big ways of saying thank you, Division III, thank you, ASC. As we're departing, we're heading out on a high note. But then next year, you kind of get stuck in this limbo area. Does that put a lot of pressure that this year is it? Let's do it now. Let's get this done because the next couple of years is just going to be kind of this weird, funky place?
I mean, yeah, to some extent. We've talked about, this is our year. We've talked about, the idea that, opportunity doesn't, wait for you. It's there for us. In theory, we should be really good next year. We have everybody back except one guy. Obviously, hope to bring a couple kids in, etc. But next year, I mean, for all intents and purposes, we can't win a championship, and this is our opportunity. So, yeah, there's some pressure there. It's the thing about having seniors, right, is they feel that internal pressure because they have no more time left. Whereas sophomores, juniors, freshmen, like, oh, we always have next year. It's hard to find that same internal pressure. So we sort of had to find that anyways, because this is our opportunity. And obviously we'll compete next year and we'll talk about what that means, but everything's about this year for us. There is no tomorrow as far as an ASC title or an NCAA tournament goes. So we'll deal with the reality of that, when the time comes. But yeah, there's a little added pressure that this is the only opportunity this current team has at those things.
From your perspective, how tough is it right now, too? Can you wait to start dealing with a lot of the Division II stuff, as it were, to next year and just focus on the D3 and allow next year to truly be that transition? Or are you already having to think about the recruiting and the scholarships and the whatnot that you are going to have to, manage as a guy, especially who only knows Division III?
It is. We've had to make those conversations. When we talk about our team and we talk about our group, it's all about this year. Nothing else matters. And we actually, our first team meeting this year, I told them this is happening. It was already public knowledge. I told them, there's some things that means. I told the basics. And then I said, we're never going to talk about it again. And we have not talked about Division II with our group the entire season because it's not relevant right now. What's relevant is our ability to compete in the ASC and compete for a championship. That's all that really matters to us right now. That being said, yeah, in recruiting and in compliance meetings and all those sort of things, we're having all that stuff. We're having compliance meetings every few weeks with different terminologies and things we have to learn with that process of Division II. In recruiting, yeah, we've got to have that. The first question anybody asks us in recruiting is, What's scholarship situation? What's the Division II situation? That's all they want to talk about. So yeah, we've got to have those conversations in the office constantly about what that looks like next year, the following year. When's the transition in? What does the transition mean? All those things are important conversations we're having behind the scenes that we have to have. You do have to balance those things. But as a college coach, you always have to balance your current season, your current team, and the recruiting in the future. So it's just a little different conversation. We've got to learn some things still. But I think we're managing it pretty well overall. Our guys know it's coming, but our guys also know that, we've put a lot and invested a lot into being ready to play this season, our preparation this season. And at the end of the year, with 1 weekend left, we're right there. So that's our focus right now is this group this year and finishing Division III in a really, really good way.
You have to be careful too when you're having these recruiting conversations to still stay compliant in Division III. So you got to be a little careful in those convos.
No, for sure. It's a lot of gray area, man, and it's a lot of yes, scholarships are coming, but we will not have them next year because we're still a D3 countable game. So we don't have any scholarships next year. It's just NCAA rule how that works. So we can't offer scholarships. We don't have anything to offer yet. It's a more of a long-term conversation that we have to talk about, what that means, what it doesn't mean. It's tough recruiting right now. We have everybody back next year in theory as well. So we'll bring in a smaller class. I feel pretty confident in that just because that's the way that has to shake out, because the following year and the following year after that, we're going to be moving into a full scholarship scenario. So that's just how we have to do it.
Hey, Jared, you guys can always change your mind and know that Division III is the better place to be. Tell your president he's lost their marbles on this decision and stick with it. Heck, I even knew there was a time someone told me Texas Dallas would love to be in the UAA. Listen, if we need to broker some arrangement to maybe move conferences, get you guys Tier 1 approval, all that stuff. Listen, let's keep you in D3. It's better for everybody, right? I mean, maybe it'll help the ASC stay together.
Hey, we've loved our time at D3, and to be honest, you've already alluded to it. The ASC challenges and
challenges. Good word, Jared. Challenges.
Yeah, have in some ways, I think, accelerated our timeline as far as the Division II move. And I'm not in those higher up meetings, but we saw the writing on the wall with the ASC, and there's 6 teams in it right now, and we all had to sort of make decisions and this is the one we chose. So we did look at options. I know over the last 10 years we've had conversations with the UAA and whether or not that would be interested or not. And those just never really came to fruition. But we've loved our time at D3. It's a great level. I've played it and coached it my whole career. We love it. So it is what it is at this point, I guess.
I'm telling you, Jared, just tell everybody it's the wrong decision. Also, you don't get attention like you do here on D3 Hoops and Hoopsville. I'm just saying.
I agree.
You become dead to us.
I know.
Well, unless you're St. Thomas. We have a special place in our hearts for St. Thomas. Minnesota, True. Not Texas. Minnesota.
Yeah, no, they've done an incredible job transitioning, haven't they?
No, they really have. Hey, Jared, really appreciate the time, the insight. I wish you all the best. I miss Terry incredibly, but I am really amazed with what you've been able to do with the program. I know being there as an assistant helps, and being there as a player helps, but it's never easy. It's especially when you take over for a legend in Terry Butterfield. But you've done an amazing job. Congratulations to the team. Good luck this weekend, because it is. I'll be lying if I said I'll be in Arizona this weekend. I won't be watching ASC games. I will be. I'm curious. Take care of yourself. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Hey, I think 2 things, man. Thank you for having us on. I think it's easy to kind of kick us to the curb now that we've made our announcement. So I appreciate you having us on and all you do for Division III and with the show and the website and everything. It's incredible. And then you already kind of said it, but man, we're going to miss you guys. We love Division III. We're full of D3 people in our office. The expanding media that Division III has with the DIII guys, with you guys, with Bob Quillman does right down the road here in Plano. It's really incredible, man. It's been awesome to kind of watch it evolve since I was a player. So appreciate everything y'all have done. And we're still D3 people at heart. So don't you forget it.
We won't forget you, but I do think you took Quillman's closest court away from him. So
yeah, we did. We did.
I think he's going to sting a little while for that.
Yeah.
Hey, Jared, take care. Good luck this weekend. Look forward to seeing how the conference playoffs shake out, and maybe we'll be talking about it in the tournament. I would love to see that.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Take care, Jared. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Jared Fleming joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline. Great to chat with him. So I'm going to give you a little insight on something. There's been a number of years, if anyone has talked to me or you heard me on the show talk about UAA possible expansion, I said there was this one team that could potentially come into the UAA, and people looked at me like, where? And where they guessed was nowhere close to where I knew it was. The problem was you had to find that partner, because I couldn't see the UAA bringing in just one team. They needed a second to balance the scheduling. That team was Texas Dallas. I heard strong conversations that it was being considered. It obviously didn't go anywhere. It obviously didn't happen. You were going to need a second. Could you be as crazy as go get Tufts and put Tufts and Brandeis together into scheduling? Maybe Emory and Texas Dallas are together in scheduling? I don't know. I mean, this opens up Pandora's box a bit, and we've already been down another rabbit hole today. But when anybody talked to me about where the UAA could go and expansion was a conversation, I would say there's one team, one program that could potentially come in. They're a tier one institution. Hardly anybody talked about Texas Dallas. It fits so many of UAA's priorities. Big city, Dallas, tier one institution, research, good program. You just needed that other one. And that was the linchpin that never got figured out. Gonna miss Texas Dallas in Division III, seriously am, but good luck to them in the ASC. This is a bonkers weekend. Must-watch weekend is in the ASC. It's gonna be fun to watch. And we'll talk about the future of the ASC at a later date. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, we're going to head to New York City and actually talk UAA basketball with the number 1 women's team and the currently number 11 men's team. Meg Barber, Dave Klatsky join us live here on the show. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops from the NABC studios. Back with more after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
We are calling you, all of you. We are calling all Division III schools to join our cause.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go on a personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Continue to go along here on our Monday Super Show here. Ferocious Finish is the name of this show because it is. It's going to be a ferocious finish. Just talked about that down in Texas, that ASC race on the men's side. Even the women's side is going to come right down to the end. It's going to be crazy. One of the more interesting races would be the UAA men's and women's races. On the men's side, NYU now has a 1-game lead on Case Western Reserve, 2-game lead on Carnegie Mellon. Then it's WashU, Emory, and Chicago, 3 games back with 3 games to play in this conference race. Real quick look at my top 25. NYU, 1-1. Case Western, 1-1 on the weekend. That's been kind of the storyline, to say the least, in Division III, or in the UAA. On the women's side, NYU has a 3-game lead on Chicago and WashU with 3 games to play. So they can lock things up here with a win this weekend. Emory is lurking, but they have struggled of late. But they're 4 games back. They're out of the possibility. Remember, UAA does not have a conference tournament. They're going to play it all out to the rest of the way. And joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline to talk about it, it's the 2 head coaches of their programs. It's Meg Barber and Dave Klatsky to talk about the Violets. First and foremost, thanks for finding time out of a busy schedule on a Monday to talk to me. I appreciate the fact that you were at least at home this weekend, which meant you're not exhausted from traveling. But Meg, thanks for taking the time. Dave, thanks for taking the time. Meg, we'll start with you. You're showing off at this point, Coach. Showing off at this point. Undefeated. Hell of a recruiting class that we talked to earlier this season. Is there anything you all don't do well?
We're having a lot of fun, certainly with the new facility opening and, with our men's team as well. There's just really great energy, both at home and on the road for us. And, it's still a tough race in the UAA across the board. So we're just trying to continue to get better each week.
Tough race is true, though you're making it look easy. We'll talk more in detail about that in a minute. Dave, second year at the helm of this program, and you have turned it around quick. 18-8 last season, 500 in the UAA, but granted 500 in the UAA to most people is a 2-loss season. And now here you are, 18-4, 8-3 in conference play, sitting on top, granted with a lot of work to do. You got to be pretty pleased with how this program has turned real fast for you.
Yeah, it's been a fun 2 years, and I think the players are where the credit lies the most. We have really good players, and we're old now and mature, and those guys have really bought in to what we're doing, and we've been able to get some wins because of it. So yeah, it's so far so good, but as you just said, we got a tough road ahead here.
Did you say your players are old now, Dave?
That's
not usually a sentence we hear.
we got a couple grad transfers that have been through it, and that was part of the strategy coming in, is to get older, and we did that. And now I believe we have 4 grad transfers that are significant parts of our program.
Let me talk about that quickly before we dive into the season, because I think that's what I found the most fascinating. Meg, you brought in 2 behemoth players a player of the year caliber player, another one who was caliber for player of the year in the conversation from two different institutions who had another year. Dave, you brought in some. It's NYU. This is not a cheap institution to go to by any stretch of the imagination. Academic rigors, the demands, even master's programs to be, of course, it's New York City. There's the costs and everything that are associated with just being in the Big Apple. You two both have significant impacts in that category. I'm curious if that was a difficult thing to achieve, because on the outside looking in, it looks like it's somewhat simple, Dave, because you got them.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first because I think they're similar stories, but I don't want to call it simple and I don't want to call it difficult. It's somewhere in between. I mean, the place sells itself. For these kids that have graduated college, you get to be in New York City at 22 to 24, 25 years old, go to one of the best institutions in the country, get that grad degree, and play basketball while you're doing it. And fortunately, we've had some success these last 2 years, so play for a decent team. So it's kind of one of those things where, yes, the pool is probably smaller because of the academic rigors and the cost, but those that fit, they really want to come, and we've had to turn people away that are really good players, and it's always a fun time to see who's interested and then go from there. But we've done well with it so far, and basically have another year left of that COVID year, and then things will change, but it'll probably be more of the same come this spring.
It's amazing. Meg, from your perspective, I almost want to say it's like the old Miami Heat team that maybe got put together. Maybe we can make some NFL references there. Major League Baseball. I mean, heck, the LA Dodgers. Maybe you're the LA Dodgers this year. That's a heck of a grab. I'm curious how that all came together.
Well, I think, similar to what Dave's saying, we've turned away just as many, people that we've kind of looked at. So it's definitely academic and career-driven decisions that are getting them to our doorstep. And the basketball piece, certainly is a nice addition for them to, have while they're continuing on with their education and internship opportunities here. For us, Morgan and Bauman are in two completely different programs of study. So again, I think the diversity of programs that we have at the graduate level also just kind of opens a lot of extra doors for us here to have a wide reach on, whatever anyone's interest may be for graduate school.
I think the elephant in the room, or I should say in the building, is the building. And it's the new gym that you're finally into. I know, Meg, I promised I wouldn't talk about water main breaks, but you're finally into the Paulson Center. I mean, and that's got to be huge. You two both hosted basically a tournament at the beginning of the season with your brethren. Was it WashU, I think, for both of you, and brought in some other teams to kind of open up the doors and break into the building and have some fun with it. That's got to be a huge recruiting feather now too, because in the past it was like, we get on this train and then we go over here and we find time where we can practice. Paulson Center being open finally has got to be huge, Meg.
That's transformational, for a student athlete experience, and just that you wouldn't think it's a novelty to be practicing where you're playing, but we've actually finally gotten to take advantage of that this year, just getting extra shots up. Being able to come down to the court whenever the guys want. So we had senior day yesterday. They got to decorate the locker room for the first time ever. So it's all these just both, I would say, bringing the team together with a facility, and then obviously also just the benefits of having a true home court, having access for our parents, our alums, our, student body to come to games and be able to, support the team. So it's really been transformational.
Dave, I know you didn't have the time that Meg has had where you sat there going, when are we getting this building? When are we going to get it? And finally, hey, we're getting it. No, wait a little bit longer. You came in at least with, hey, we're going to have a new building, and didn't get it initially. So it may be a little bit of a different perspective from you, but it's got to be a help.
Yeah, it's tremendous. It really has that wow factor when you walk in, and to be in one of the best locations in New York City and have that type of facility, it's incredible. And we are fortunate and lucky to be able to have that. And our players, they know it because when they walk in other gyms, they're like, oh, well, they don't have this, this, and this, and they're not playing for, so it definitely is something special. I mean, I played in the Ivies and I coached in the Patriot League and both Division I leagues. And this one might be in the top 3 of the, whatever 15 to 17 or 18 schools there are there. So it's definitely next level, and we're finally happy to have it, even though I didn't have to experience all that Meg did as a first or second year coach. I still realize how lucky we are.
Ryan Scott actually got to get there this past weekend to get a look at it. I saw the old building. I haven't been back obviously to see the new one yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Let's pivot to the season, though. It's been crazy for both of you. It's been a bit of a fight in the UAA. On the men's side, it's been redonkulous. On the women's side, it's certainly been challenging. Meg, we'll get to that in a minute. But Dave, to prove how tough it is, your weekend, you get a huge win over over Case Western 93-80, then a tough loss to Carnegie Mellon 83-80 at home. Interesting enough, kind of reversing the earlier trend on the road where you lost to both teams. It feels like that's the statement of the UAA, that the matchups are so tough in this conference that even when you replay the game, you're not necessarily going to get the same outcome. What was the difference this weekend in the Case game and the Carnegie game? And was it simply matchups?
I don't know if it was simply matchups or simply shooting. We play against Case and we shoot 14 of 24 from 3, which is obviously way above our season average. And then we play Carnegie and they shoot 11 of 23 for just under 50%, which is way above their season average. So I don't want to simplify it that simple. But like you said, there's a standings, and right now we're at the top, but the way this has played out, if you played this season 10 times, it might be completely jumbled. And we know that going into every game. We've had, I mean, maybe you have the stat, but I believe out of our 8 wins, 6 or 7 of them were 6 points or less, maybe, or, regardless, coming down to the final couple possessions. And again, Carnegie was the same thing, and they hit the shots and we didn't for one of the first times in 6 or 7 games. And that's normal. And, both those teams you mentioned and us, we're all good teams, and you just never know what's going to happen in that particular day. So, was I surprised by the results? No. Am I upset? Yes. And you always want to get the wins, but Carnegie's really good. Case is really good. So we got a split. Now we got to find a way to keep getting some wins on the road.
In your last 10 games, dating back to the first set of games against Case and Mellon, 8 of those games have been 7 points or less. The 2 that were not, both Case Western Reserve, interestingly enough. Both of them blowouts. And the one game we're not counting in that Brandeis go back, that was outside of that as well. But just interesting in the last 10. Meg, on the other hand, for you guys are trucking through everybody. It gotten to a point where on my show I just say, you've lost to NYU, just like everybody else in Division III. The games haven't been as close, which I find the most interesting because the rest of this conference has proven to be very good. Chicago's a very good team. WashU's a very good team. Emory has shown signs of being a pretty good team, but you are controlling everybody. Is that simply down to the fact that you grabbed 2 of the best players last year in Division III and said, hey, do you want to fit on our team? Or is it more complicated than that, which I suspect?
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly experienced, and our goals setting out at the start of the year were to win the UAA, and with that experience comes knowing that you can't overlook anybody. So I think I sleep pretty well at night knowing that our team is going to come hungry and ready at the tip to fight for 40 minutes. And with the additions, we Natalie Bruns is a 1 of 1 in Division III women's basketball. Belle Palecchia is a monster, defensive, just relentless effort on the defensive side of the ball, and has put up double figures in conference play. So we're very well balanced. I know that helps the team in terms of, it's not on any one player's shoulders to carry us in any one game. We're, really approach it as a team, and that selflessness, we're leading the country in field goal percentage and assists. And that statistic is probably why, we've strung together so many UAA wins. Certainly coming up, we're on the road at Washington, Chicago, and I think both of those teams, I think we have 4 NCAA tournament resumes in the UAA on the women's side, and Washington, Chicago are 2 of them. So that's a real NCAA tournament road weekend feel coming up. So, we have to, just stay steady and put the same effort in this week and, just continue to grow.
You're outscoring your opponents by 28.5 points per game. You're only allowing 53 and a smidge. Your opponents are shooting just under 34% while you're shooting 49%. You're shooting 37% beyond the arc, allowing your opponents 27%. You're pulling down 20 plus rebounds a game. You're putting out 20 plus assists per game. Your opponents are maybe at about 10. Meg, there's statistically where this just starts to jump out as a dominating performance, and I ask this in all seriousness. How do you keep a team that can dominate everybody focused on understanding that one little mind escape, whatever you want to call it, can kind of pull the thread?
Again, I point back to experience. The last 2 years, obviously not having a facility ready, we knew we were on the road for the NCAA tournament, but we ended in the Elite Eight at Hope, with Hope going on to win the national championship. We ended last year at Transy with Transy going on to win the national championship. So we've been kind of on the bitter side of 2 back-to-back road Elite Eight weekends. So we know how important it can be to host that weekend and, kind of have a more favorable matchup in the tournament. So I know that, that does drive our players in terms of what you're talking about, that slip up. We're very focused on ourselves. We really do put an emphasis on NYU basketball and continuing to get our team better and not necessarily looking at, obviously we scout and try to take away tendencies and things like that. But I would say it's less about opponent and more just about us on the journey that we're on and trying to get better every day.
Dave, you got 3 guys in double figures for a team that's outscoring its opponents by 11 and scoring 82 points a game, which is pretty impressive. 17.5 points a game from Spencer Freeman, who seems to do nothing wrong. 48% from the floor, 40% from deep, 86% from the free throw line. He's got Jay Freeney and Michael Savarino, who also score in double figures alongside him. But anytime anybody watches a game, it starts with Freeman, and that's got to be a great key to turn whenever you need to turn it.
Spence is special. He's a special player, one of the smartest players I've ever seen, no matter what level. Extremely humble. I joke all the time that he's hit so many big shots, and his celebration is literally just running back and going to the next play and play defense. You never see him really celebrate at all, and he's hit some game winners, some shots with under 3 minutes to put us in. He's gone on 13-0 runs by himself. He's done it all, but he's just doing it because that's what he expects of himself. He's put so much work in. He's an awesome teammate, great leader. So we're really lucky to have him, and he's proven to be what we were hoping when he stepped foot in the door. But he's not the only reason why we've been doing well. Those other 2 guys you mentioned have really, really stepped up this year. They were good last year, and I think they've been really good this year. And then in addition, a bunch of other guys that have really stepped up for us and made us a really hard team to guard because we do have a lot of threats. And that's been the key to our offense being so efficient over the last couple of years, is just let's get the best shot for our team. And that's led to really good offense, and we don't take that many bad shots. I don't consider anything under 6 seconds a bad shot, but from 6 to 30, we really value that shot. And it starts with Spencer because he's distributing the ball and he has the ball in his hands the majority of the game, but it just trickles down to everybody else on our team.
Spencer came from Harvard, but how much did he play there?
So I don't have it in front of me, but I know his senior year, he played about 7 to 10 minutes because he put 14 on Colgate when I was at Colgate. So I knew what he was doing his senior year, but yeah, I think he was somewhere around 7 to 10 minutes when he was healthy, a game at Harvard.
Yeah, I can find him in the 21-22 season. He played 16 games, averaged 2.3 points per game. He averaged about 8 minutes a contest. It was interesting because I was looking into them earlier, and I was actually double checking today checking now because I wanted to make sure I hadn't lost them. I couldn't find them in last year's, but you talk about injuries. How much do you, because listen, there's a lot of guys who come from D1 to a D3 program, and it's like, this isn't working. This guy isn't as dominant as we thought. It's hardly, I would say Freeman's a rarity where they come down the division and they make a huge impact right away. Did he have to buy into a new mentality? Granted, Harvard and NYU, very similar academic institutions, maybe similar in the athletic world as well, certainly without scholarships. But did he have to kind of change mentality? Did he have to buy into a different world?
Yes, but most importantly, he was so hungry. I think he, in his 4 years, one was COVID, one was a medical red shirt, so he only played 2 years. And it didn't go great for him, like flat out. I think he expected more. So when he got to NYU, he was so ready to just be his best and play well and do all the things that he could. And a little bit of his like system wise, like we play a free flowing offense where the point guard has the ball in his hands a lot, and Harvard's a hard nosed defensive program for the most part. So he didn't get the same opportunities. And it's obviously a different level. Harvard's been really good for many years. But no, he was just ready. And I think to his credit, like I remember in our first talk, we talked about expectations and he was like, Coach, I have very high expectations for me and the team. And I didn't really know what that meant because I'd only seen him, on
against Colgate.
He scorched us at Colgate. But he was driven and he was ready for it. And he's proven that he could do it.
Meg, to your side, we talk about bringing in these two huge players, Player of the Year and one who was in the mix for the Player of the Year award, who came from really good programs. Smith, similar boat you were in, just missing out on getting to a national championship game themselves. That's a risk because you can bring in two players and they don't gel. And they don't, and you got other players who are expecting maybe the playing time or had felt that they had put their time in to gain a role that they felt, they had deserved or at least earned. Earned is probably a better term, not deserved. You bring in two huge players who take from that time. You can change up the chemistry real quick. Obviously, it's working, but was that a work in progress early on?
Yeah, certainly. I've told people on paper, people had us penciled in, making a deep run before the season even started, but that's not really worth much. You have to put all the pieces together. And again, it comes down to the character of the people that we have. Jordan Janowski started in the Elite Eight game a couple years ago, and she was coming off the bench for us, this year, and took that role very seriously. And obviously it's a big role. So, it's, you can look at it a lot of different ways. To Dave's point, we still have one more year of this, and it's kind of the times a little bit in basketball. So they know it's, happening in other programs. And I think for our staff, it's just about making sure that it's the right people, because you can, do a lot if you have the right people and they're willing. Obviously, Morgan, Bauman, they were willing to make sacrifices. Statistically, they would be most teams in Division III, Bell, Plekia, Bruns, they would be any team's best player. And they have all sacrificed those statistics to play together. And I would like to say that they're having a lot of fun, doing that and just being in the position that we're in, where our program is, in the UAA and, within the NCAA landscape as well.
Interesting dynamic ahead. You all have to play on the road to finish it up. You mentioned Senior Day this past weekend. You got 3 games on the road. You head out to do the Chicago-St. Louis run. You'll start in St. Louis and then go to Chicago. Then you go up to Boston for the finale there of the regular season to play Brandeis. Meg, the men are playing well enough. We'll find out maybe Thursday to see where everybody maybe is seated initially. But the men are playing well enough that if there's a choice to host, they're going to get that first weekend at the Paulson, which means you're going to have to go back on the road, maybe somewhere close, before you maybe get a chance at the Apple the second weekend. I know that's not ideal, but it may be better than last year when, as I understand it, you guys just kind of understood that you weren't going to be home.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the last 2, tournaments, we haven't just been on the road, we've been like flights. So, we're the men's team's biggest fans. I think what their staff and team has done is phenomenal. So we are absolutely rooting for them to host. And I think, again, just bringing NCAA basketball to New York City is really exciting to think about for both programs. So certainly, obviously we would love to be hosting as well, but wherever we go, we've been road warriors just as much as at home. So we're just looking forward to wherever that is.
Dave, can you guys even look ahead? Obviously, 3 big games ahead. Brandeis is a tough team. Can't look past them either. Can you even look ahead at the possibility of being at home at the Paulson Center March 1, March 2?
Hosting? You're talking about hosting? No. We still got 3 road games left. The way our schedule was started, we played our first 7, 5 at home. 5 of the first 7 were at home, and then 2 of the next 7 were at home. So we got 3 road games to go. So honestly, hosting is like the furthest thing. I'm just trying to get one more win in the next 3, because we're playing 3 really good teams on the road that are probably favored against us when they're home. So no, yeah, we want to host, but the good thing is the way Meg and the girls have played, I do believe there will be basketball in New York City the first weekend, which is nice. But no, to answer your question, it's like, especially after this past weekend, if we had gotten this past one, then maybe you could start to formulate a vision that could happen. But it's getting wins on the road is so hard in this league. That's all I'm thinking about.
I just changed your nameplate. It says Jim Mora Jr.
I thought you'd like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's got history with me, sir. My sports anchor loved that so much. Anytime anybody brought up the word playoffs, we ran in Mora's audio. That is the best thing in the darn world. That was beautifully done. All right, now I'll change your name back just to be fair. Hold on, Klatsky. There we go. Hey, listen, appreciate the time and the insight you all have provided. Really, and your sport. Quick shout out to your sports information department. They sent us a bunch of material that I woke up late this morning, so I couldn't sneak it in, but I have a feeling I might need it for Thursday, so we'll keep it in the reserves. But listen, seriously, appreciate the time, appreciate the thoughts, and coming on and talking about the Violets. It is so much fun, and I mean this seriously, to see both programs doing so well. I think there's a lot of people clamoring for this moment. Clamoring to see men come back into the conversation, clamoring to see the women certainly in the conversation. And Meg, you obviously have had them there for a few years, so congratulations to that. As always, we give the guests the final word. So final thoughts from you two. We'll start, Dave. We'll let you go first and let Meg bring it up at the end.
Dave, thanks for having us. I love what you do, keeping D3 on that roadmap, and appreciate it really, really much having me on, and hopefully the UAA gets a little bit more spread out, but I have a feeling it might get a little more jumbled as these next 3 games happen. So we're just gonna keep at it, and hopefully the best is yet to come for us.
I think this weekend proved it's not getting spread out in any way, shape, or form. Speaking of spread out, Meg, you got a few games. Obviously, one wraps us all up. Final thoughts from you.
Yes, just echoing Dave. Thanks for having us on. Just want to give a shout out to our league, because I think, with us being at the top and kind of doing what we're doing, you can kind of lose sight of some of the other programs. And Emory, Wash, Chicago are having phenomenal seasons as well. I think Wash is kind of just figuring things out a little bit. So I think all are certainly NCAA deserving, but we would absolutely love to be having playoff basketball in New York City. So we'll be rooting for that, I'm sure, on both sides down here.
That would be fun, I'll admit. I got to find a way to get to the Paulson Center now to compare the 2 buildings. I know this one will be cool, so I'm not expecting there to be much of a comparison. I just loved when I walked into the old place, I could walk in on the ground floor and look down 30 feet at the floor. I heard that's not part of it, right? There's no openness to it anymore, right?
There's elevators now.
Fair. I'm going to need one, so that's good. Hey, y'all, thanks again for the time. Really appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the season. Safe travels, because obviously it's road stuff for all of you. Look forward to talking to you at the end, or talking about you at the end of the month, and seeing where everything fits in. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Meg Barber, Dave Klatsky joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Real fun chatting with them. That was a great conversation about NYU. Seriously, Women are just incredible. Men really showing that they are in it this season to make some waves. We'll see how far both programs can go in March coming up. And can games be played at Paulson? I'm looking forward to that answer coming as well. We'll take a break. When we come back, where are we headed? Oh, that's right. We're heading up to New England. We'll talk WPI men's basketball with Chris Bartley. Joins us to talk about his engineer squad. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the NABC studios. Back with more after this. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, and I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all. It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
These are your teams, your players, your community of fans. This is where they play, where they practice, where you cheer. At every meet, every event, every game. Your community is passionate, dedicated, supportive. You know the tension of a close game and the thrill of the win. So while you're cheering, keep an eye out for anything out of the ordinary. If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go on a personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
For the love of the game, but for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com. Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Continue to roll along. You got questions for us. Social media avenues sitting at the bottom of your screen. We're live simulcasting on Facebook and on YouTube. I see Chip has Joseph. He said hosting. Been waiting all interview for that Mora reference. Classic. Yeah, that was pretty good. Kalen says, got rocked by NYU my junior year at Purchase. I'll hopefully catch them in action
in the tourney if they host. Yeah, they've rocked, especially on the women's side, quite a few teams over the years, have they not? Meg Barber has put together a great team, and it's great. I think they finally found a really good coach in Dave Klatsky who gets it. He may not be from Division III per se. Obviously, Colgate, though, is a great teaching tool to jump into the UAA. Patriot League is what I always consider the Division III of Division I. That's not a knock at the Ivy League. I think the Ivy League's in its own world. But I've always felt the Patriot League was very much a Division III conference in Division I. I'm very much involved with it, with what I do with work at Navy. In fact, in a couple of weeks, I'll be doing a game at Navy where a former Division III coach is head coach now of Lafayette. So it's just, he definitely understands it, and he's figured it out at NYU, and it's great to see. Long-term coaches have certainly figured out. If you jump up to the new MAC in New England, there is a heck of a race going on between a team that I thought was going to win the conference, honestly, in Clark, and WPI, who's coming on strong here at the end, which I think, and I'll be fair, we'll talk to Coach Bartley about this. I think we get very used to WPI playing really well at the beginning of a season, at the end, maybe fading a little bit. But they've got a game lead on Clark. The two have split the regular season, and they have both distanced themselves from Wheaton, Babson, and even further from Coast Guard, Emerson, and the rest. This race is going to come down to the end, and the driver in pole right now, or in P1, I guess is a proper way to say it, is WPI. Chris Bartley joins us on the Hoopsville Hotline to talk about all of it. Coach, first and foremost, we should tell everybody you are the one who helped me discover we had a major problem last Monday, and which is why the show never made the air. So I appreciate you double dipping and coming back with me here today. This is a wacky season across Division III, but Clark comes up, storms the castle a little bit, and you got a dogfight going on.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, I think it was my technical expertise, Dave, that was able to discover the glitch last week. So
yes, your engineering skills were amazing.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's been Clark's built a really good program. Tyler has done a good job over there, and their style is different for our league. They got a lot of quickness and athleticism. And, we had quite a run against them for a while, and, now they've gotten us twice this year. But, as so often happens, the conference regular season, championships, usually boil down to the last week. So, it's put on your hard hats and let's see what we can do on Wednesday against Springfield.
Yeah, I misspoke. I said you guys split the regular season. That obviously incorrect. They have beaten you twice. But you got to be big fans of Coast Guard, Babson, and Wheaton, who have knocked off Clark this season to put them a game back. I assume you've sent them maybe Harry and David gift baskets or something?
Yeah, no, it's like I'm big fans of our guys, really, at this point. It's like our guys have worked really hard. I think all these kids that are, seniors this year that are what I call the COVID kids. In our case, our guys like John Adams and Donovan Sevilla and Andrew Lufkin, they didn't play a game, during that COVID year, where I think some of the other programs got a chance to play. So I think, those guys have persevered through a lot, and I lean on them a lot. So I think if we, just play to our standard is all that we really care about. And if that's good enough, it's good enough.
It's interesting. I said this at the beginning, and I don't know what your perspective on this is or not. I got very used to you guys having really good teams at the start of the season, kind of through the midpoint, really in the battle, and then by this point in the season, kind of fading a little bit, taking a loss or two in the conference. Obviously, a tough conference. Brandeis has been good over the years. Emerson has been a nuisance. Coast Guard will show its head. Obviously, Clark this year, and then get to the NCAA tournament, maybe not get where everyone thought. If we were talking about in December, we would have expected it. It seems maybe it's different this year because, yes, good this year with tough losses, no pun intended, to Tufts and Gettysburg, which was an interesting result. You've only lost to Clark since. You're playing really well in conference play with 2 games left. Does this feel different?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we're like 38-5 the last 3 years in the new MAC. So I don't know if we've had any, fading, so to speak.
Touche. Yeah.
Game.
Fair point.
This group 2 years ago was in the Elite Eight, so and that was Adams and Sevilla and Lufkin's basically first year of college basketball. So, last year was a difficult situation for us. We were 22-4. We lost in the conference tournament championship game, and we didn't get the at-large that we thought we might, So I think it's been a motivating force for our guys. But, like you said, there's a lot of good teams out there. Everyone's trying to do the same thing. And so at this point, it's just about, trying to tweak this and tweak that and sharpen the saw a little bit and, see if you can put it together at the right time.
You bring up some good points there that I don't think I fully maybe not, have in my head. First off, 2 years ago, I can't believe they were first years in that season. It still isn't registering, which is scary because you're going to have them for another year. And how good that program was. And then last year, you literally you point out exactly how tough it was last year with so many conference upsets, including yourselves in the tournament. It left so much less wiggle room to get at larges. We mentioned at the beginning of the show, we were making selections at the end of the at large selection process that were probably middle of the pack in most years. So you're probably in the tournament in a normal year as an at large, but it is motivating and it's working because John Adams, I remember joking about that in the past, not the president, 13.9 points a game and 11.5 rebounds a game while shooting 53% from the floor. His only Achilles heel is his free throw shooting. And you got two more guys in Donovan Sevilla and Aiden Callahan who are in double figures in scoring. That's a hell of a trio. And obviously Adams is damn good.
Yeah, those guys have some experience. They've been in a lot of big games. They've won a conference tournament championship. They played in Elite Eight games. They've lost a conference tournament championship. So, I think the culmination of that experience, helps you. But, ultimately, Adams is a guy that we go to. And I think, playing through him is something that we do a pretty good job with. And, he's getting better as his career has gone on about recognizing doubles and triples and, spraying it out to guys. And now basically our team is, I think we're a tremendous defensive team. If our offense and our shooting catches up, to our defense, I really think that, we can, be successful here down the stretch.
Yeah, defensively giving up just about 58.5 points a game. Opponents are shooting 39% from the floor, 30% from deep. You're out rebounding your opponents as well. Listen, defense usually can carry, right? When the offense is struggling, it's the defense that can keep you in a game. That's hugely important. You say let the offense catch up. What are you expecting more from the offense?
Well, I don't think, maybe some people don't realize that, we're playing, some young guys too. So, beyond those three guys that are basically, juniors in eligibility, we've played 4 first-year guys this year. Kid Jack Blyer, Justin Molan, Nate Bledsoe, JT Viking, along with, some kids that are juniors that are basically in their second year, Morelli and J.R. Newman and Timmy Reedy. So, kind of piecing it together with the old guys and the rookies,
You mentioned these guys are juniors in eligibility. WPI, certainly a really good institution. Can you hold on to them for another year? Are you going to be able to keep this core group together? And thus, not only does the experience come back, but the guys who are getting a lot of experience in their first year are going to be able to gel into their second and become even more formidable.
Well, it's tough here. They get these big time job offers, and they start throwing 6 figures around at these kids. It can be difficult, but we'll see what happens. I think our focus is, obviously what's right in front of us. So, we're actually going on a team trip to Belgium and France and Germany in May. So I think at that point we'll have a better idea of where things sit. And, that's going to be an exciting opportunity for this group to come together even more.
I.e., whoever's on the trip will make note of because they're likely coming back. Beautiful places to visit, by the way. Love Belgium, France, and Germany when I've spent my time there. And we're talking almost 30 years ago. It's scary. This conference, interesting year. Again, Clark comes roaring out, really playing well, as you pointed out. He's gotten you twice. The rest of the conference hasn't been as formidable as we're used to. Is this a transition year? Is this just kind of everybody figuring it out with COVID and such, and we could have a really tough conference next year?
Yeah, I think every conference is a little bit different. Our conference, we haven't, really yielded the 5th year, grad transfer guys that maybe some other conferences like the UAA have had. So that's a little bit unique. I know Babson's done well in that area over the years. So it's I think it's like cyclical. I do think this COVID few years is going to be unique, and then there'll be a reset. And we've been more traditionally like a team that's sort of built from within. We haven't really had a lot of transfers, that kind of thing, and everyone does a little bit different. So I feel like our conference is, we've had a ton of injuries in this conference. Like Babson's got Amato out for a long time, and he's one of, if not the best player in New England, on any given day. So we'll see if everyone gets healthy and what happens going down into the conference tournament.
You're in your 22nd season, believe it or not. I don't know if you're keeping tabs. They are on your website. You've got over 400 wins as a head coach. I think maybe the white hair fools a lot of people. You're younger than you really look, maybe. I don't know. I'm guessing here. How much more have you got? Because it feels like you're synonymous with this, and I don't expect you going away anytime soon.
No, I've got young kids. Don't let the snow on the roof fool you, Dave.
There you go.
Yeah, so I got, I love this. I love coaching. I love, coaching at WPI. We've got, really good young players here. I've got great staff. I get to work with Rusty Egan every day as our sports information director. What could be better than that? And, I'm happy as anybody could be in this profession.
Yeah, Rusty's one of the best in the business, sir. Always love Rusty. Quick note, Ryan Kane. Graduate, played under you, was an assistant for a short time under you, really did some great things at Keene. Now he's down.
I couldn't get rid of him, Dave. He was here for 8 years after he played. I call him media darling, Ryan Kane, by the way.
I was going to say maybe he was taking my road. He couldn't figure out how to graduate from the institution, so he just stuck around for a while. I know I was guilty of that a little bit. Now he's at Johns Hopkins, certainly doing well there. They figured things out under Coach. Well, what's it like to have, he's not the only one, but what's it like to have a coaching tree where you see that kind of success with a individual like Ryan or several of them that have played for you, coached under you, and gone on and had so much success on their own?
Yeah, I mean, with Ryan, like I said, he played for us for 4 years. He was the Jostens, player of the year, his senior year. And then he was an assistant coach while he was working, at an engineering firm out here for 8 years. And then the Keene opportunity popped, I really thought it was a good opportunity for him. And he wanted to, get into this thing full time. And he did a great job there. And the place was in great shape when he got there. So, I was telling him more like, don't screw it up. And then he took it that next step. And then when the Johns Hopkins thing, opened when Josh left, I thought that was like a great fit for him because, he had the academic D3 recruiting experience. He was a great player at this level. He'll tell you all about it, by the way, how great he was. I'm glad to see, we still talk every week. So he's one of my, he's one of my boys, as I like to say. So I'm really happy for him.
Listen, if you need me to do anything on the sly, let me know. It turns out he lives really close to my in-laws. And so I'm happy on a drive-by to maybe just, exact some revenge if you need.
Yeah. I've got, I've got a lot of great Ryan Kane stories. I will say this, he was one of the toughest and most competitive people I've ever been around. He was really big into how we built our program. And then for him to stay on as long as he did as an assistant, was a great for me because our relationship really went from, really evolved and developed over time where we're, such close friends now. It's awesome to see him succeed in a business that he loves.
No, I agree with you. I can totally see. I remember him as a player, but I can totally see where that fire came from. He still has it as a head coach, and it's great to see him having that kind of success. But it speaks volumes to you, Chris, because it's your program he learned under, both as a player and as a coach. And I know other coaches have been able to make that transition. That's got to be a little bit of a pride factor when you think back on it.
Yeah, I think for us, it's just being consistent every day. That's how we've built our program, getting competitive guys that are gym rat types that love it. And you want to squeeze everything out of the experience, So, I think, I'm happy when our guys go on. We've had some guys go on to the high school level, college level, and be successful. And that's what the thing is all about is, the connections, the relationships with people, alumni. We were at MIT the other day. We had about, 7, 8 alumni. I had a couple guys that I coached in high school way back that were at the game that are from that area. So, that's the stuff that's, priceless.
Back to the moment at hand. You've got Springfield at home coming up on Valentine's Day, and then Wheaton on the road to wrap up the regular season before conference tournament. Obviously, you don't want to get into a tie with Clark because they're going to have the tie break on you. So what's the message to the team heading into these final two?
Well, the Springfield game, we were down at half in our first game against them and had, rallied and had a really good second half. So, we have respect for every team in this conference. Mike's done a really good job of, getting those guys to play very, very hard. They might not have, culminated with a ton of wins in our conference, but, I think everyone knows in our league that when you go to play Springfield, those guys are going to be ready and they're going to be athletic and they're going to be able to compete with anybody in our league. So they're just young and kind of building. So, with our guys, we talk, a lot about, every game, every opponent is a unique challenge, and what happened in the first game doesn't really mean much. So you just honestly, you take them one at a time. And the idea for us is like to not so much worry about the other team, really focus on, getting better for ourselves, and really bringing, our level of intensity and playing really well as a team, sharing the ball, sprinting around, getting guys, feeling good out there about themselves. That's really where we're at right now.
Well, I appreciate you coming on technically twice. Nobody saw the first segment, but you and I did.
Will that be reflected in my paycheck, Dave?
Yeah, yes, definitely. The union dictates we must send it twice since we started the Zoom meeting. I appreciate you coming on, talking about the Engineers and this new MAC race and what's ahead, really, and the insight. Always love chatting with you. Wish we could get a burger at Cottage Burgers, but we'll let that slide for another date at another place. But sometime I'll be up there, and I'd look forward to catching up and somewhere down the road as well. In the meantime, we always give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Yeah, I mentioned Rusty earlier, but I think couple of the forgotten, entities in our success, in any program, I think in Division III basketball is our SIDs, number one, and our athletic trainers. So I love to give a shout out to the sports information people out there, and also all the athletic trainers out there for all the hard work that they do and getting our guys ready to play. So thank you for everything, Dave, that you do for D3 Hoops, and hopefully see you out there soon.
Yeah, love to catch up with you, but great thoughts on SIDs and trainers. I echo those as much as we can, so appreciate that. Good luck the rest of the way. We'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Thanks, Dave.
Take care. He's Chris Bartley joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Great to chat with him about WPI basketball. We mentioned the game on Valentine's Day. Should point out throughout the day as we've been doing this show, I've been noticing some tweets and some other alerts coming out. Conference games are starting to get moved, especially off of Tuesday due to a weather system that's moving into the East Coast. I think it's going to affect everywhere. I'm seeing weathermen now saying down here in Baltimore we may get hit harder tomorrow than we expected, all the way up to the East Coast. So we'll see how games shift around. So keep a track of D3Hoops.com and the schedules to see where games are moving. Other interesting note out of New England, we should point out on the women's side, the new MAC race, Williams has not made it. They will not make the conference tournament. And Pat Manning's squad had some huge wins this year, but they have missed out on the tournament. Did you know going into today, only 2 programs on the women's side had been in the NESCAC tournament every single year? Bowdoin and Williams. Now it's just Bowdoin. Really interesting in the new MAC race on the women's side. We'll take a break. When we come back, we got another guest to talk about. We will jump. Where am I jumping? That's right. We're jumping out to Minnesota, talking St. John's, Johnny's men's basketball, right here on the show. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops from the NABC studios. Back with more after this. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all. It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
If I lose, I'll respond with respect.
If I win, I'll back it up with humility.
If I fail, I'll rise up with honor. It's tough for us to put it all on the line.
Don't undo my hard work with poor sportsmanship.
Respect. It's the name of the game.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. As we continue to roll along on this larger edition of the show on this Monday, had so much to pack in. We moved up the start time to noon. We got one more guest to talk to. Then I was going to finish the show talking about streaming in Division III, but I'll explain why we are going to put that on hold, but also talk about what's coming up the rest of the week, or 2 weeks really, here on the show and in Division III basketball. If you've got questions for us, you can always join us, whether it's on our simulcast on Facebook and on YouTube. Some of you listening on YouTube, appreciate that. Facebook, I think there's some people. Oh, no, Facebook decided to cut us off again. It's the random we shut it down thing, and we don't know why. So we're off Facebook, and I am not going to jump out of hoops to try and get that back up and running. But, of course, you can always find us on D3Hoops.com, D3Hoopsville.com. You can email us or find us on social medias, the information at the bottom of the screen. By the way, tote board, oops, other side, tote board's a little low. We'll talk about the fundraising efforts here A little bit of how they've stalled, too, coming up here momentarily. Jumping out to the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, easy for me to say. I had a great conversation with Gustavus Adolphus, women's basketball earlier in the season, and for some reason we just haven't gotten back into the conference, even though I've tried on a few occasions. Mad Chat Sports Tavern likes the show. Thank you. I'm a little surprised, actually, on the men's side, because when you look at the conference race, it's not what I think I expected. St. John's has dominated. They've got a 5.5 game lead on Carleton and Hamlin, and Gustavus Adolphus is 5 back. I'm trying to do quick math in my head. 6 in the win column, 4 in the loss. Concordia Moorhead's even further back than that. Didn't really get the results from a St. Olaf or a Bethel or some of these other teams, which is kind of a little surprising to me. So St. John's has got the lead, and they've already won the conference regular season crown, as they are 17-2 in conference play, 19-5 overall. So it might make for an anticlimactic conversation. We're going to give it a go anyway. Wondering what it all means. Pat McKenzie joins us on the Hoopsville Hotline from the Johnnies of St. John's. First, Pat, thanks as always for finding time to join us, especially live. Yeah, this MIAC race to me feels like I don't know what happened this year. It's not what I expected.
Yeah, I don't know what happened either. It's been kind of a wild year. And to your point, I mean, we've been fortunate to build a little bit of a cushion there, but it doesn't feel like that. I can tell you that. And it's one of those years in the league where, like, if you need help, you're going to get it. And I think just about anybody can knock anybody else off. And to your point, I mean, there's a little bit of a logjam there, but those are pretty good teams, and I think it's going to shape up for a really exciting end of the conference regular season here to see how seeding shakes out, and then ultimately a really competitive conference tournament here in a week.
Just looking again, you guys are 17-2, and Carrollton and Hamlin are 12-6. Concordia Moorhead actually tripped you guys up 3 games back. Hamlin has tripped you up by a point back in late January. Otherwise, you guys have kind of coasted along in this group, and I'm not saying that negatively. I just mean, and this gets to something I said to you off air, it feels like you're flying a little bit under the radar. I feel like, and we'll talk about the whole season here in a moment, but it feels like the conference race not being maybe as competitive as we expected. I think a lot of us voters are like, well, what do we make of the Johnnies in a year that there's a lot of really good teams? Are we missing something?
I don't know about that. I mean, I think to your point, there's a lot of good teams. We've been fortunate to see some of them, maybe unfortunate, in our non-conference. So I don't envy that task at all. And there's a lot of good basketball across the country this year, and I think we're a good team. We feel like we can play with anybody, but I'm sure there's a lot of teams that feel that way too. So I don't know. I don't know that you're missing anything or not. But we got a good group. It's been really fun. They're a really fun group of guys. So hopefully we got a few more in us.
Talk about the team in a moment. Let's go back. You talked about who you ran into. You started the season against Eau Claire and Platteville and took back-to-back losses, 82-69 and 80-78, the second one being played at the small college basketball event out there in Aberdeen, South Dakota. You got at least a win in the second game against Stockton. That kind of got you all on a roll. You ended up winning, I believe, 8 straight through Nazareth. A solid win there in mid-December down in St. Petersburg, Florida, before Mount Union tripped you all up by 10, or make it 11. Then you kind of got back on the horse. You beat St. Olaf on the New Year, St. Scholastica, Bethel, etc., and rolled through. And as we mentioned, Hamlin and Concordia Moorhead are the only 2 that you lost to. Did you guys learn anything early on in that beginning? The first 2 games, what did you learn about your team? What did you learn about yourselves that maybe helped you kind of write things and get rolling after?
Yeah, I thought we learned a lot. I mean, we the first game down at Eau Claire was, I think, somewhat of a wake up. We had some put in a new offense, had some injuries that guys were coming back from. And then Eau Claire, they're good, and they just outplayed us. But we felt like, all things considered, we were in a decent spot. Knew we were going to have our hands full out at that small college classic. And to some degree playing Platteville, I mean, I know Jeff fairly well and obviously have a ton of respect for what that program's all about. I think playing in that game, and we had some opportunity. They were better than us. I mean, they beat us and they were better at that time, but we were right there. And so I think that, weirdly, not that you're in the moral victory business, but sort of felt like, okay, this is a darn good team with some senior leadership. We're right there, so that I think gave us maybe a boost of confidence to say, hey, we're not as far off as maybe we think. And then that was a great event. Stockton's awfully good. Keene State was out there. So you're seeing some of these teams from across the country that can play. And I think there's really good value in that.
As a whole, you're scoring about 83 points a game. You're only allowing just a smidge under 70 shooting percentage. You're allowing, you guys are shooting 51 plus, allowing 42, and you're shooting really well from deep too, because you're shooting 41% from deep and allowing 33%. Begs the question, is this an offensive team or is this a defensive team?
Some nights it feels like neither, to be honest with you. I don't know. I think we've got guys that can score. I mean, we're playing, a little bit more guard heavy lineups. So I think we're able to space it a little bit. We have some shooting. We got guys that can get to the rim. Defensively, we've been maybe a little more inconsistent, I would say, and that's been an area of focus where we know we need to get better if we do want to make a run here. There's some stuff we still need to clean up, but it's been a good group and a lot of fun. And, we've had moments of being good at both ends of the floor and like everybody else, right? Then there's moments where neither seems to be working well. So just keep hammering away, right?
Yeah. I don't know a lot of coaches who are satisfied with their team at any point in the season, including after a championship. Got a squad that's listed with 5 seniors, 7 juniors. Don't know if that's true eligibility or not. A couple of sophomores and a whole host of freshmen. And when you look at the top 5 or 6 in scoring, it's mostly those seniors. You have a junior, obviously, for those who know the program, and Cooper Vaughn, who's leading the way at 13.7 points a game. You also have a sophomore, I think it's Edelman, if I'm remembering, right?
Edelman Senior, Kyle Johnson maybe is a...
Yeah, that's who it was, yeah. Kyle Johnson's the one I was thinking of. But the rest, again, it's senior class. It's Thyssen and Berg and Edelman, who certainly are part of it, and a lot of others. Whether they've got eligibility, again, I don't know. It gets to this point in this COVID stuff, I've lost complete track. But again, a lot of upper class experience, a lot of key players getting their points, running the offense, leading the way, with a few underclassmen who are understanding their roles as well.
Yeah, I think we've got a really strong junior and senior class, and that helps. I mean, that helps a lot. They've been through it, and the leadership piece is just critical. It's been a really, really good locker room from that standpoint. And to your point, we changed offenses, so some of it's new to everybody. That's taken some time, but sort of the intangible piece, and then defensively, it helps having those older guys. I mean, there's no question. They've been through it. They understand what it takes. Just more consistent, and that certainly has been a part of our success, so far.
Jump into this changing the offense. You mentioned it a couple of times. How dramatic of a change is it? What did you guys go to? What did you come from? Why the change? This is, for a coach who's been there for so long, I understand coaches adapt and adjust and certainly add twists and maybe adjust their offense, but adding a new offense?
Yeah, it's more dribble drive. We'd started that when I first got the job, and then we were really fortunate to have a string of great post play. And so when we had that and kind of ran everything through them for a number of years and had some success there, but then felt like this year's group, we just guard heavy and trying to change up to play to the strengths of the group and get more of those guys on the floor. And so it was a little bit of an adjustment because we hadn't played that way in a while. But the guys took to it. I think it does fit them. And so that was the genesis of it, so to speak. And, hopefully continues to pay off.
Well, you're going to tell me next you're going to put in the system?
I don't think we're quite ready to go that far just yet, but if it fits, right? I suppose.
If it fits, exactly. Hey, women talking about schedule changes next year. That's coming to men too, right?
It is. Yeah, correct. So that'll start next season.
Looking forward to it, I assume?
Yeah, I don't know I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, I think, on paper, in theory, it should be a good change. Our league is big. So that certainly, 20 of our games are in conference play. So that'll decrease a little bit. I think it'll be a good change. I think it obviously offers more flexibility scheduling, which is a good thing. But it just kind of, here we go, and let's see how this thing shakes out.
How many out of conference games are you going to have next year?
I think we go to 9. I think we're at 16. So that's the other thing. I didn't realize how much I hated scheduling until you had to do it.
or how easy it was for you.
Yeah, we were that piece of our schedule was fairly, we're spoiled in that regard. So that's changed things a little bit. But I think it'll be good. I think it's a good change.
How soon till we see you at the D3Hoops.com Classic?
That is a great question. I don't love that time frame, and maybe I'm old school, but I don't know about our guys in Vegas either. That could be.
Oh, that's trust me, that's not as big a worry.
No. We might have to. We need to look at. We're gonna have more games now, right? So you may be stuck with us.
Oh no! Hey, well, I'm happy to be stuck with the Johnnies coming to town. I was going to offer your women's team to come along with, but surprise, surprise, St. John's technically doesn't have that. Obviously, you have your partnership. That's important, right?
Yeah, it's very important. I mean, everything's together. I don't know how successful we'd be recruiting without the St. Ben's piece. So everything's together, and other than our athletic departments, which there's some benefits to that setup, but yeah, we're cheering for them. They're cheering for us. Know Mike really well. He's obviously had an incredible career over there, and been a valuable resource for me, being able to pick his brain. That guy's he's seen a few situations over his time. So it's in essence one and the same.
To anybody watching at home, I have screwed up. I forgot to put the right basketball logo in. So apologies. Just fixed it. Now we got the St. John's logo there. So I'll make sure to ask a few more questions so it gets enough airtime. You guys are very much like a Hobart Williams Smith. Maybe a little bit obviously different in some ways, but it's very similar in the sense that to some degree you're one unit, but in athletics in some other ways you're split. Listen, COVID probably hit it a little bit, the departure of St. Thomas from the conference. Certainly don't want to dwell on it, but that was a huge rivalry for you all in the St. Thomas, St. John's existence, as it were. It was getting to the point where I think you guys were all talking about adding an extra game just because of how big that event was. And really, as St. Thomas got better, St. John's got better. You guys were synonymous and very much at the hip. How much is that missed?
I mean, it's missed. Certainly, the like you said, that atmosphere, those crowds, that was really fun. And yeah, I mean, you miss that, I think, as a competitor. To your point, they made our conference better. Certainly in basketball. I mean, that was they were going to be right there. Every year, and they were going to have, they still are a great program. And so, yeah, for a lot of reasons, we miss that, no question. And, it's starting to feel a little more normal without them. I would still say not fully. But, what are you going to do, right? That thing's done. We got to keep moving forward. And, they're having a lot of success as well, which is great. Very happy for them. Johnny does a great job. He's become a friend, and happy to see them having the success they're having, and hopefully they can continue that.
Yeah, pretty impressed with what they're doing, especially on the men's side. Hey, back to the here and now. You've got one game ahead of you. Interesting enough, it's on Wednesday, Valentine's Day. You'll get Saturday off. ahead of the conference tournament, which starts next Tuesday, which because you're the number 1 seed, you'll have that off. You got a little funky thing here. You're going to have over a week off before you hit semifinal play on Thursday, the 22nd. Probably, I'm going to guess, maybe not ideal. Or I know you want a rest, but do you want it at this point?
Yeah, I don't. It's funny. We were talking about a soccer coach. I don't know if it's good or bad. It gives me something to complain about. So that's good, right? We can. You got to. It is what it is. You got to make it. You got to make it good. I mean that that's kind of going to be the message. Is we don't have control over that. So this could be a negative. It could be a positive. Let's make sure we make it a positive in our approach and hopefully get healthy. We've been banged up. We've been banged up this year. So there's some of me that thinks maybe this is a chance to sort of catch our breath, get healthy, and hopefully put our best foot forward for the conference tournament.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously for injuries and for fatigue and any of that stuff, it's certainly it's perfect. It gives you a chance to take a break. But I think it's a little rough when you haven't played in a week that your first game is a semifinal game and you're coming at, someone's coming after you who's obviously gunning for bigger reasons than just beat the Johnnies. Do you feel anything about regional rankings where you feel comfortable if something doesn't go your way in the conference tournament, or do you guys have the mentality of, no, we got to go win this thing, especially with parity now?
Yeah, I'm not on the rack. I had been, so I'm not really privy to those conversations. I don't think you ever feel comfortable, thinking you're going to get an at-large. Maybe there's I'm sure a handful of teams that are and should be and can be. We're not one of them. I wouldn't think so. No matter who you are, your best bet is that AQ, right? I mean that is the best bet. Obviously, you want to put yourself in a position to get it. I don't know that we're there. So our focus has got to be on making a run and trying to take our AQ. That's the best way in, right? So that's the focus.
It's a program that we got very used to being in the conference or in the NCAA tournament. Obviously, last year, a 17-10 season, it just didn't go your way. Carrollton knocked you out in the conference tournament and kind of ended what was a bit of a nice little run there at the end. You guys kind of got some momentum going. But again, you're synonymous with being in the tournament. You were in the second round, lost a tight one to Calvin 2 years ago. Back in 2019, 2020, unfortunately, you guys were a part of that Sweet 16 that never happened. Granted, big game against St. Thomas, we were all looking forward to. Talk about a horrible finish there. The year before that was the last time you were in the tournament against Northwestern, I believe it was, where they knocked you off in the opening round. How tough was last year is my point.
Yeah, I mean, we were disappointed, a little inconsistent. And Carleton was really good. I mean, they were the best team in the league without a doubt. And they proved that. And we, to your point, I thought started to find a rhythm a little bit towards the end of the year, started to get a little more consistent, variety of reasons for that, and came up short in that conference championship game. But I think that, like anything, there were some lessons there. And this group, I think, took that and used it, the right way to put us in a spot where we are today. And so while I wish it would have went better, it probably served as a little bit of a catalyst for this season. And there's still a lot of work left to be done, but there's some growing pains there for sure. And this group really I think responded from that and learned from it, which is from a coach's stand, that's cool to see. And this group has done that. No,
it absolutely seems like this crew is driving a little bit. Maybe those opening two losses too kind of woke them a little bit that, listen, this is going to be last year if we don't figure it out now.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a measure of that. And our seniors they're great. They've done a heck of a job. Again, the locker room is fantastic. These guys, there's a purpose, there's a drive to them. They're just a great energy. It's been really fun. And I think some of it you enjoy it more when the year before doesn't go quite the way you wanted. So it makes this a little more fun for sure.
Well, Pat, I appreciate your time. Obviously, one game left not at Bethel. You'll be home against Bethel coming up on Valentine's Day. Big game there. Looking forward to seeing how that plays out for all of you. And then see where the conference tournament takes you. It'll be a little bit of time off. You get to maybe enjoy some downtime, but we'll look forward to seeing how it all rekindles. And hopefully we're talking about you when it comes to the brackets for March as well. In the meantime, we always give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask this too, and I don't have anybody necessarily to suck up to. And I've done this before, but a shout out to the SIDs, the folks behind the scenes, particularly up here at our guys, Ryan Klinkner, and he's as good as there is. And so much, they're the same right now. I mean, they got multiple sports. They're in gyms, they're in rinks, nights, weekends. It's Division III, right? So a lot comes across their desk that probably isn't their job, but they do it anyways. And they help make things run and are so behind the scenes. It's hard to always recognize them. So a shout out to all of them, but in particular the one here in Collegeville, Ryan Klinkner. He's the best. We love him, and very, very, very appreciative for all he does.
No, very well said. Love Ryan. Love working with him, especially when I did a lot of work with the Gallardi stuff. Always a great guy and hardworking, and big smile on his face when I usually see him. So that's always fun too.
He never smiles at me. So
what?
At least, yeah, he's as ornery.
What have you done to the man?
A lot. That's why I have to thank him. So I'm glad you've got to see him smile.
Yeah, well, usually he has a beer in his hand, so that might have something to do with it. And it has been a handful of years, so who knows? Hey, Pat, again, thanks for your time. Really appreciate the insight on the Johnnies. Good luck the rest of the way. Look forward to catching up with you down the road, and take care of yourself.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Dave. We appreciate it.
Oh, anytime. We appreciate it as well. Take care. Pat McKenzie joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. It's actually, I looked back, while he was saying that about Ryan Klinkner, it dawned on me that today's show kind of features a who's who of sports information departments. You got Mark Beckenbach at Ohio Wesleyan. You've got Rusty Egan at WPI, Ryan Klinkner at St. John's. You have Jeff Bernstein at NYU, Bruce Unruh at Texas Dallas. These are SIDs and departments that have been around Division III for a long time, kind of hold the standard, many of them, to what you expect from sports information departments. And I'll say this, we talk about the web stream element, and I will get to that on a future show. I promise you. I'll explain more about it in a minute. But when you talk about sport, web streaming efforts and what schools are trying to do and resources and all of that, it usually falls on sports information, athletic communications offices. And that's where I have a little bit of the problem with this web streaming effort, because I think what is A, being asked for, and B, what is being given are not on the same page. And we will get to that on a future show. I promise you. I could go down that rabbit hole later. There was some stuff I read today that put some pause on that. I want to put a real well-executed segment together on that with my thoughts. And I wasn't going to be able to do that today after an absolutely bonkers weekend. And with stuff I read this morning, I want to just put a pause on it. I don't know when I'm going to do it. Maybe it'll be a one-off. Maybe I'll just get it out of the way. But anyway, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll put a bow on this show and start looking ahead at what we've got ahead, which includes a very, very busy week. If you got questions, get them out to us now. You can email us, send us to them on our live stream on YouTube. Facebook's is down because Facebook chose to shut our stream down once again, and I have no idea why. I put a flag on it to keep it from happening, and that didn't work. You can also email us, as I mentioned. You can also send us via social media. Lots of avenues to get a hold of us. Any questions, anything you want to talk about, get it to us here as we wrap up the show here on Hoopsville.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Responsibility is being accountable for your words and actions, first and foremost. It also is an obligation to be a positive influence in the communities around you. Being in a D3 program, you're going to have lots of different opportunities. You're not just an athlete, you're also involved in student life. Your academics are extremely important. We give a lot of our student athletes responsibilities right from the start by giving them leadership opportunities, by having them engage in the community, be a positive influence. That's being a responsible person.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% would go pro.
That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's NABC.com or NABC1927 on social media. Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we wrap up the show here on a Monday afternoon. Programming notes for the rest of the way. Thursday show, live at 7 o'clock. It will be the top 16 announcements. In other words, what the seeds would be if they were to take the regional rankings from this week and start hosting out with obviously no issues. That's a Hoopsville exclusive. Top 16's announcements coming up on Thursday the 15th at 7 o'clock. We'll hear from both committee chairs on those decisions and all of the rest. So that is coming up. That is going to gobble up a ton of our time between now and then. We'll be reaching out some institutions and such to get that put together. But if you remember last year's show, it was pretty fun, pretty good. We'll be doing that again here on the men's side. Oh, I just realized that's our 20th season graphics. So let me change that off. There you go. Get the more non-20th season edition of that. So the top 16s, that is coming up here on Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern time, right here from the NABC Hoops studios, presented by D3 Hoops. Then next Tuesday, we will be on the air. So a week from tomorrow will be our following show. It'll be another afternoon show. Reason for that isn't that we have anything Tuesday night, but because we traditionally do a Monday evening show, I will be traveling back from meetings with my job with Major League Baseball Last year, I took the red eye and did a show Monday night. I'll be honest with you, that was stress that I don't need to put myself through again. So we're going to do a Tuesday afternoon show, because if we did a Tuesday night show followed by a Thursday afternoon show, not a lot of turnaround time to get the Thursday show put together. So Tuesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon next week. At this time, both will be 1 o'clock Eastern time. Okay? At this time. So that's the 19th and the 21st. If we have enough content, we may add it and start at noon instead. Tuesday's show, I'm looking to do something a little bit different. I might bring on some of our data guys, if they're up for it, to talk about what we may see in the third regional rankings that will come out later that day, and what we expect ahead of Selection Sunday. Maybe sprinkle in a couple of coaches or school programs, whatever, as well. I'm playing with that idea. Then the Thursday show, that's going to be a chat with what's going on. We are going to be absolutely in the midst of conference tournaments at that point. There will be upsets that will have already shook up the Pool C bubble scenarios for both men and women. So we'll dive into that topic on that Thursday show. Then the 25th of February, a Sunday, we will have our Selection Sunday show, where we bring on our committees, our quote-unquote committees, to make selections on who will be in and who will be out of the NCAA tournament in our estimations, i.e. who will get the at-large picks. We may start that as early as 5 o'clock to try and just not go so late into the evening. Then the 26th are the NCAA bracket shows. Honestly, I'm not sure my status on the 26th. I'll be checking on that. But we will be doing a bracket show that evening at the very least. And then Thursday, what is that, the 29th of February, Leap Day, will be our tournament preview show officially as we get ready to get into, and that should be a 7 o'clock show. A lot of moving around, so just follow us on social media. We'll try and get out of schedule, but the most important one is coming up Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern, live-ish. We'll be doing the top 16 announcements coming up. Looking forward to that. Again, this past Saturday, some bonker results, especially on the men's side. You had a lot of upsets. Centennial Conference race and the Landmark Conference, which I'm closest to, were just insane. It seemed like neither side wanted to have a winner. Gettysburg lost to Ursinus. Ursinus has knocked off now both F&M and Gettysburg in the last week. Johns Hopkins got a big win, so they're first place in the conference with Gettysburg second. F&M lost. I think F&M lost, right? Am I right? Am I saying that right? Yeah, they lost to Swarthmore by 25. F&M is limping to the end. You had other upsets throughout the nation as well. Manchester knocked off Transylvania men. If you haven't been watching the HCAC race there, Transylvania had been in a tie with Anderson just a week ago. Anderson now has a 2-game lead. They have 2 to play against Hanover and Manchester on the road and then away, respectively. Transylvania is on the road against Franklin and then home against Earlham. That race is not over. It's just, whoo. See how that plays out. Granted, Anderson gets 1 win and it's a wrap, but I'm double checking how Anderson did against Transylvania this season. They beat him twice. So really 1 win and Anderson's got that wrapped up. But again, that was a 2-horse race not that long ago. Hanover and Manchester are a game back of Transylvania, with Franklin a game back of those two, so within 2 of Transylvania. So things could go sideways, and Transylvania could go from the 1 seed to the 4 seed in a drop of the hat, maybe a 5th seed, if things don't work out right for them. So there was all of that going on, plus all the upsets in the top 25. On the women's side, Bowdoin basically took the top dog in the NCAC race by absolutely dominating Amherst. 67-33. Polar Bears held the Mammoths to 18% shooting. Amherst only hit 11 shots and turned it over 13 times. Get this. Sydney Jones of Bowdoin scored 32 points. Amherst scored 33. Sydney Jones almost defeated Amherst on her own. Smith had a huge win, but it took overtime to get past MIT by 5. That certainly, it doesn't lock up the NUMAC women's race, but it certainly helps make it more sense. Hope had a 15-point win over Trine to win another regular season title in the MIAA. Hardin Simmons women took over first place of the ASC, though they got some help to do that because number 17 Mary Hardin Baylor lost 58-53 to McMurray. Willamette doubled up Puget Sound in the first half and then held on to win by 10 to give them the top seed in the Northwest Conference, but that Northwest women's race is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And by the way, Oberlin, we didn't mention this when we were talking earlier to Ohio Western, but Oberlin beat DePauw 55-50. First time they've beaten the Tigers in 28 tries. It has been absolutely crazy. Top 25 in men's ballots are due soon. When I get done with you, I will be finishing up my work on my top 25 ballot. And then you'll see those released later this afternoon/evening. Men tend to come out late afternoon. Women tend to come out in the evening just due to schedules. Then let's see. Regional rankings come out on Tuesday. The first ones we'll see actually ranked. Again, wish the first weeks were ranked and the mock rankings are alphabetical if you want to use alphabetical. They will come out sometime Tuesday afternoon. It was interesting last week. Women, we saw the sheets get published by the NCAA. Those are the people in Atlanta. And within about 20 minutes of that point, the rankings had come out. On the men's side, the sheets showed up, and then it took several hours before Atlanta finally hit the publish button on the rankings. There was a theory that maybe they were waiting for the NCAA Division III social media team to jump on board, but that wasn't it. Not sure what happened, but I have a feeling something happened in Atlanta. I was too busy to care anymore. Just waited for someone else who was watching it to jump on board with that. So there you go. There's a ton going on in these final 2 weeks. You got to stick with D3Hoops.com and Hoopsville to get it. D3 Datacast boys put out a prediction of what week 2's rankings may look like. I have not listened to it because I was too busy getting this show on the air, but I'm sure that is a good listen. I'm not sure what QCast has done recently. Ryan Scott is popping up in a number of places due to his web streaming article that he published last week, which was not without hassle for him. So I tip my hat to him on that hard work. Again, I was going to talk about web streaming today in Division III, but the amount of time I got wrangled into other things this weekend, coupled with something I was reading this today that I thought was behind the scenes and not being discussed, caused me to put pause on that. And so I will tackle that on a later show, maybe next Tuesday's show, if not the following Thursday show. It's apropos because we're getting close to the NCAA tournaments, which is the larger picture on this web streaming, which is why I'm also thinking about just doing a one-off show. The larger picture on this web streaming thing is complicated and interesting and unfortunate, to be honest with you. I think people are starting to lose a little focus on the division here. I think some people are looking at Band-Aids that are not Band-Aids, but we'll dive into that at a later date. There is so much going on. It is hard to keep track, but D3Hoops.com is your home for Division III basketball. Hope you'll log on there. That also supports us. Speaking of supporting us, whoops, I had not put it up on our screen. I apologize. I brought it down for the top 16 stuff. Don't forget, we do have a fundraising effort. I know several of you have contacted me about sending checks. We don't put them on the tote board until they have arrived, just out of fairness. We have a lofty goal we'd like to reach in about 2 weeks' time. We're not there. We're close to it yet. I'm looking forward to seeing more. You can Venmo us, information on the screen. If you want to find another way to do it, contact us, and we'll let you know how to do that. If you are a company, wants to sponsor, or a school, sponsor, advertise, or whatever on this show, let me know. We'll find a way to make that happen as well. That's going to wrap us up just under 3 hours. I'm a bit exhausted, to be honest with you. Got a long week ahead of us that I got to pace myself through. But great guest to talk to today, and it was a great show. I hope you got a chance to listen to it as Stacy Ungashik Lobdell joined us from Ohio Wesleyan. Of course, Jared Fleming from Texas Dallas, Meg Barber and Dave Klatsky from NYU, Chris Bartley from WPI, and Pat McKenzie from St. John's, and I want to thank all of their sports information departments, as we did earlier, for their hard efforts. Some of you sent us stuff that we weren't unable to use due to my own issues and trying to get some sleep. But I have a feeling we'll be using some of that material here in the very near future. With that, we wrap things up. Reminder, again, Thursday's show this week at 7 o'clock will be the big show about the top 20 or the top 16 announcements. And then next week on Tuesday will be an afternoon show after we've gotten back from meetings and the like. Just double checking we haven't missed any questions. I don't see any. I want to make sure nothing got emailed in while we were gone. I don't see any there either, or on the socials. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. Great show. Fun to talk Division III basketball on a Monday afternoon after the Super Bowl. And good. Oh, by the way, almost another Division III player came moments away from winning another Super Bowl ring, but it did not happen for the 49ers. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the NABC studios. I do want to thank our partners at the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More information coming on our partnership with you or with them, but I want to thank the likes of Gary Stewart, Dave. I was going to say Dave Macedo. I am combining names now because I am that tired in my head that I can't remember simple names in the world of college basketball. Mike McGrath is who I was thinking of. You don't want to understand how I got from Mike McGrath to Dave McGrath or whatever I said. I don't remember what I even said, but trust me, in my head it made sense. Anyway, Gary Stewart and Mike McGrath and a whole host of others at the NABC, Wade Hagerman as well, for their assistance and their support of our program. We look forward to continuing to work with them in the near future. With that, we call this one a wrap. If you want to talk Division III basketball, you've got to listen to Hoopsville, and we appreciate all of you who have certainly done that. We will see you Thursday for the big show. It is the top 16 seeds announcement coming to you at 7 o'clock on Thursday. We'll hope you'll tune in to join us for that, and we thank you for your support. Until Thursday, enjoy another good week of basketball, everybody. We'll talk soon.